About the British monarchy. Welcome to the Making Sense podcast. This is Sam Harris. Okay, well, what's going on out there in the world? I haven't spent much time thinking about the British monarchy. I guess I've always had a good American skepticism about the validity of the institution. But Andrew Sullivan just wrote a really wonderful short piece mourning the loss of the Queen that gave me, I think for the first time, an appreciation of the value of a constitutional monarchy. At one point he quotes C.S. Lewis, who wrote, "Where men are forbidden to honor a king, they honor millionaires, athletes, or film stars instead, even famous prostitutes or gangsters. For spiritual nature, like bodily nature, will be served. Deny it food, and it will gobble poison." I disagree with Lewis about many things. I've always thought his defense of Christianity was fairly risible. And I'm not even sure I agree with this quotation entirely, but there's something interesting there. And Sullivan continues writing, "The crown represents something from the ancient past, a logically indefensible but emotionally salient symbol of something called a nation, something that gives its members meaning and happiness. However shitty the economy, or awful the prime minister, or ugly the discourse, the monarch is able to represent the nation all the time, in a living, breathing, mortal person." So anyway, this, as I said, gave me something to think about as though for the first time. It strikes me now that a monarch, when she or he is actually functioning as intended, is the opposite of a scapegoat. In the Bible, in Leviticus, the scapegoat is literally a goat that's imagined to contain all the sins of a community, and then is cast out into some wasteland to die, taking the sins of everyone with it. Now, of course, the phenomenon of scapegoating is something that happens with people, too, albeit unwittingly. And one can often see this. You can see a community on the verge of violence or just intolerable conflict can focus its destructive energy on a single person and use the obliteration of this person, whether in reality or just reputationally, as a way of resetting itself. Everything can go back to normal now that the witch has been burned. The philosopher René Girard wrote about this some, and one can see a lot of this online now. The way a community increases in solidarity by sacrificing individuals who commit some sort of blasphemy. Perhaps this point's been made many, many times because it seems somehow obvious, but the monarch in a constitutional monarchy seems like the opposite of a scapegoat. And Queen Elizabeth seemed to serve this role unusually well. She was the embodiment not of the community's sins, but of many of the virtues it didn't even have, right? Virtues like discipline and dignity and self-restraint, right? The sacrifice of self to the institution, which the Queen demonstrated to an incredible degree. She was a kind of anti-celebrity. She was perhaps the most famous woman on earth, but she was really a cipher. She subordinated everything to the role that she was meant to play. It simply wasn't about her. In place of her personality, she functioned as a kind of symbol of service to her country, and of patriotism, and of civility, and continuity, and stability. So in venerating the crown, people were venerating all of these things. And as Sullivan points out, all of these things are markedly absent in society at this point. Anyway, culturally and personally, all of this is quite foreign to me, but I can understand it. And I can understand why so many people felt so personally touched last week by the Queen's death. Which brings me to something that happened on social media that seemed to typify all that's wrong with social media itself and with our larger culture. A professor at Carnegie Mellon University wrote the following on Twitter when the Queen was on her deathbed. She wrote, "I heard the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating." And then she wrote a series of tweets defending this tweet after Twitter removed it. So anyway, this professor became Twitter famous when Jeff Bezos reacted to her tweet, I think. I'm not even going to name her. My intention, needless to say, isn't to make a scapegoat of her. I think I just want to point out that she's probably not this terrible a person in real life. Right? I think the existence of Twitter is largely to blame for what's happening here. She's clearly a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, right? So she's talking to a cult and being rewarded for it. And social media is what is providing the incentives here, as well as the mechanism for her to broadcast this opinion. And it's providing the mechanism for everyone else to discover just what an aberrant person this woman is, or seems to be, right? And to react to that. And there's no possibility of anyone persuading anyone of anything. Right? So our conversation, more and more, is conforming to the epistemology of the mob. And by mob, I mean not mafia, but the crowd. And the mob is unreasoning, more or less in principle. And it's unprincipled. It has no limiting principles. It has no mechanism by which to detect or even care about its errors. It's a pure advocacy and agitation. It's continually shrieking about the worst of its opponents, and is determined to see the worst in them. Now, I've experienced this both from the right and from the left, and it's not fun coming from either side, obviously, but what one sees, once one ceases to take it personally, is the dysfunction of it. How people aren't even making contact with the problems they're purporting to respond to, all the while growing increasingly certain that they are responding to some kind of moral emergency, and what's more, that they're making progress toward solving it. Anyway, I really think life is better than it seems online, and yet I'm increasingly worried that the distortion of reality one gets online is feeding back into the world and making people more cynical and more distrustful and more despairing of making progress. I think social media is making us less capable of living good lives together. Anyway, this is in part the subject of today's conversation. Today I'm speaking with Jonah Goldberg. Jonah is editor-in-chief and co-founder of The Dispatch and the host of the Remnant podcast. He's a scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, an LA Times columnist, a CNN commentator, and the author of 3 New York Times bestsellers. And he also worked at National Review for 2 decades. And today we speak about the whole catastrophe, really, focusing mostly on the state of American politics and civil society. We discuss the hyperpartisanship of the left and the right, what Trump has done to the Republican Party, the breakdown of trust in institutions. We discuss this new catastrophism enabled by social media, the problem of populism, and other topics. And despite all of those dire things, I thought we ended on a refreshingly hopeful note. And now I bring you Jonah Goldberg. I am here with Jonah Goldberg. Jonah, thanks for joining me.
It is truly a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've never spoken. I've spoken to some of your friends and colleagues, most recently David French, but I've admired your work from afar for years now. And perhaps you can summarize your background politically and as a writer. How do you describe your Pilgrim's Progress at this point?
Sure. Let's see. I sort of grew up in a pretty political family. Both my parents were at one point or another journalists. My mom was something of a famous troublemaker. She was involved in that Lewinsky scandal stuff and some other scandals, to be honest. And I grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. We were always politically conservative, so we were a bit like Christians in ancient Rome in that sense. And my first job in Washington was at the American Enterprise Institute as a research assistant. I was there or adjacent to it for much of the 90s. And then I came over to National Review, where I was the founder of National Review Online and the founding editor of National Review Online. And I was at National Review in one capacity or another for 20 years. In that time, I was a contributor to Fox for about 11 years. And my conservative bona fides, the only reason I'm bringing this up is I'm making assumptions about why you want to lay this stuff out, are pretty solid. I mean, I joke, it's funny because it's true, I met Pat Buchanan at my bris. And so...
Hopefully he didn't perform the bris.
No, I have friends who think that maybe this explains some of his problems with Jews. Like, my God, what do these people do? And then in the run-up to, in 2015 and 2016, I was one of many conservatives who was deeply troubled by Donald Trump and thought this was a bridge too far, and was troubled by the rise of populism on the right. And then the ranks of people who saw the world the way I did shrank quite rapidly over time until it was me, David French, and maybe a dozen or so other people. Written 3 books. I'm very interested in intellectual history, particularly conservative intellectual history. And I'm a syndicated columnist, been writing for the LA Times for about 17 years, I think.
And you have the Dispatch. Your main platform now is the Dispatch, which you co-founded, right?
And thank you for bringing that up, because my co-founder would scream at me if I didn't mention it. Yeah, a couple years ago, Steve Hayes and Steve is formerly the editor of the Weekly Standard, we launched the Dispatch, which is a unabashedly right of center, but fact-driven places, trying to prove that you can do honest, serious reporting and analysis from the center right without doing a lot of the fan service you see on a lot of the parts of the right. In some ways, when I try to explain it to people of a certain age, I compared a little bit in terms of the editorial philosophy to the New Republic in the 1980s and early 90s. You knew it was coming from a generally liberal perspective, but it also had, in a more classical sense, a liberal attitude of rejecting sort of cant and piety, of being willing to call BS on its own side, and trying to do reporting with some famous failures, but trying to do reporting that was trying to engage in making serious arguments that took the other side's arguments seriously. And that's sort of the spirit that we would like to have with the Dispatch. It's been going very well. We're leaving Substack soon to be launched on Substack as a full publication. But since our launch, I believe it's still true. Maybe there's something going on in the last 6 months I haven't looked at, but since launch, we've been the #1 revenue-generating product on all of Substack, and it's gone very, very well. And we've assembled a great team, about 25, 28 people, and we're growing even more every day.
That's great. That's great. Congratulations. Thank you. So I do think the troubling sign of the times that we're all having to rebuild civilization in this piecemeal way on our own, and we'll talk about the failure of institutions, which I know is a concern we share. But yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I like you putting your conservative bona fides up front is that, one, I don't have them, right? I have been traditionally a liberal. I have never voted Republican for anything, on any point, I don't think. Certainly not for president. And yet I'm often attacked as a partisan whenever I say anything negative about Trump. And my argument has always been that there really is nothing intrinsically partisan in noticing his unfitness for office and the corrosive effect he's had on our politics, which is to say that there's almost nothing, really absolutely nothing I say about him that I would be tempted to say about a Republican like Mitt Romney.
Right.
And it is also true that I spend more of my time criticizing the left at this point for all of its obvious failings. So it's just good to have someone like yourself or David French or David Frum or many of the never Trumpers to talk to on that particular point. And it's also interesting that it's just, while we are coming from different places politically, I think we will agree about almost everything with respect to the failings of Trumpism and the failings of the far left. And it's just, there really is a reshuffling of political intuitions here on many fronts. And so yeah, anyway, I think it's
no, I think it's a good point. And I've made a similar point many times. It's like, if you're willing to reject the sort of the groupthink of either political party and stand up for, I mean, we're going to talk about institutions, but this sort of simple liberal institutions that define much of what it means to be an American, at least in a political and in some ways a cultural sense too. If you're classically liberal at heart, where you're willing to engage in good faith arguments and deal with inconvenient facts in a good faith way, that makes you something of an outlier from either side these days. And I'm not trying to do a symmetry between, it's not, a lot of people understandably hate the both sides thing, but there is a remarkable, mirroring going on among the sort of the hard left and the populist right in terms of embracing identity politics kind of arguments, tribalist kind of arguments. And so there are people, like you, again, we've never spoken, but like people like you, people like Jonathan Haidt, I can, list a bunch, Yasha Monk, who probably profoundly disagree with me about various public policies, but agree with me about sort of on the epistemological level, and agree with me on the sort of basic systemic, or I agree with them on the basic sort of systemic level about what are the institutions, customs, norms, mechanisms, whatever you want to call them, that preserve and define a free society. And that creates this weird sort of trans ideological kind of fellowship that I do think is oddly, I don't know if it's totally new in American politics, but if it's been around, it hasn't been, it feels new, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it certainly feels new. And I don't know how distorting a lens social media has thrown over it, but it does feel new. And I want to talk about the pathologies as we see them on the right and among Republicans, but I don't want us to exclusively focus on that. I really want us to talk about what it would mean to repair our society at this point. Because I think many of us are asking whether we're witnessing the beginning of the end of our political and social order in some sense. And the breakdown of trust in institutions is certainly part of that. And perhaps the most galling part of that is that in many cases the loss of trust has been well earned, right? I mean, it's not just that people's attitudes have changed. It's just that there has been a breakdown of competence on so many fronts and in so many crucial moments that it's fairly phantasmagorical at this point. And it extends from everything from public health messaging, from the CDC and the FDA, to scientific and governmental institutions in general. It encompasses the media in all its forms, from journalism to Hollywood. There's now a serious question about whether we can run free and fair elections. And even if that's not really in doubt, there is a serious concern that large segments of society will no longer trust the results of free and fair elections when we do run them. And there are new institutions that are proving corrosive of social order. I'm thinking in particular of social media. And it does this in part by amplifying our doubts about everything and exaggerating the severity of real problems, but also by inventing imaginary ones. And it has just been a factory of lies and misinformation at a scale we've never seen before. And so, to my eye, what we have now is people on the far left who think that racism and other forms of bigotry have in some sense never been worse. And you've got someone like J.K. Rowling who is their idea of a moral monster. And then we've got people on the far right who think that at the far extreme of the far right, way out there in Trumpistan, they think the world is being controlled by child-raping cannibals. So there's a kind of a radical core of craziness that is touching a lot. I mean, it shouldn't have as much political surface area as it does, but it really is distorting. And again, it's hard to know how much social media is magnifying this and how much the mere magnification of it is self-feeding back into creating real problems. And so there's like a new religion of catastrophism that is, in many cases an exaggeration, I think, but also the exaggerations result in a level of cynicism and distrust that can become a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. So I guess that's my general picture of what we're living through now. I don't know if it departs at all from yours, but what is your view of American society?
No.
Yeah, so
We can wait for Diana.
I have days where I agree with you
entirely.
entirely, and then I have days where maybe I'm too online, I'm too in a bubble. Maybe I'm taking the
I feel like
shadows
Diana has to be around
on
topside jungle.
Cave
Right there she
too
is.
seriously, which is a
Where does
lot
she
of
me take
social
that?
media stuff. If you can do these gut check things, like when you see a wildly viral tweet
She's
that
scanning
has
that.
5,000 likes or 10,000 likes, and then you say, okay, that's as many people as would fill a decent-sized high
I
school
realize
football
not even
stadium.
worth any
in
money,
Texas.
so it feels bad to clap on
And
her. We know
it
there
gives
weren't
you
any
a sense
awards around here.
There's a lot of
so-
stuff going on in America. Most people aren't on Twitter. Most people aren't taking their cues from it. The sort of Pareto
Easy.
distribution
Let's
of
go.
how many people are extremely online and tweeting constantly, particularly political tweeting, is very distorting. And I think it creates real problems for Democrats and the Democrat-affiliated or sympathetic mainstream media. We can get into it, but in a sane political climate, James Carville would have, and I'm not a huge James Carville fan, obviously, but James Carville, any old style serious politician, the second they heard some Democrats say defund the police, they would have gone on the phone and say, "Shut up! Are you crazy?" And at the height of the defund the police stuff, all the polling said that something like 80% or upwards of
And we can
people
herald
of color
that if we get
wanted the
close.
same amount or more policing.
Yeah.
No one wanted no policing. No one, and this is one of these ideas that transmitted through this sort of pure petri dish of blue checkmark bubble Twitter online stuff, and went straight into the blood veins of MSNBC and at the time CNN. And then, so even though it was a bullshit thing on Twitter, it becomes real because it goes on TV, and then politicians are asked about it and have to take a position. And so it's difficult to figure out whether some of this stuff matters or not, because it gets into the bloodstream even though it shouldn't, and then once it's in the bloodstream it becomes a real thing. Yeah. I think I wrote this book a few years ago called Suicide of the West, and part of my argument about where we are is that we increasingly, in part, and I think part of this has to do with the breakdown of civil society, the breakdown, the whole bowling alone thesis, the cocooning that we're doing, where we're basically hiding in front of screens rather than engaging with human beings in real life. And one of the things that has led to is following politics like it's a form of entertainment. And there's a thing that happens, I mean, you know this stuff better than I do, but there's a thing that happens in your brain when you follow entertainment. We allow ourselves to root for murderers, bank robbers, torturers, when we see them on the screen, so long as it's been clear that they're our hero or our anti-hero or whatever. And we forgive all sorts of behaviors that we would say should put you in jail, never mind make you a pariah. And the problem is that when you start following politics like it's a form of entertainment, you start, the tribal mind kind of takes over, and you start
think we're going for Baron.
Judging things about whether your team is winning or losing, and you no longer care about the norms, the institutional rules and all that, because in movies you don't care about that stuff. You just want the hero to get the MacGuffin. And in politics now, so much of, I'll give you an example. It'll feel partisan, but I know we're going to do a lot of Trump bashing, so I'll get the equal time in. Barack Obama said, I think it was 24 times, maybe it was 28 times, that he literally did not have the power to do DACA, the Deferred Things with Agreement. And he said, look, I'm not a king. The Constitution does not give me this power. We don't live in the kind of society where I can just rule at a whim. And he said that for like a year, and then he realized that he couldn't get it through Congress, so he did it anyway. And the response from the leaders of the, of the sort of the influencers and leaders of our political class, the journalists and so forth, if they weren't like objectively partisan Republicans, they all cheered about this courageous, act of political morality without caring that, according to the president's own terms, he had just done something tyrannical and monarchical. Now, you can agree with the policy. That's not my point. It's like the student loan stuff. The student loan thing that Biden is proposing is lawless. I mean, it's like literally lawless. And no one seems to care. And I think it's sort of emblematic of the way we follow politics, because so many of the things that Donald Trump did were either literally lawless or certainly in open and complete defiance of all traditions and norms of the job. And that's what his biggest fans love about.
Given up. They have 2 inhibitors
and
now.
it's particularly problematic as a conservative because, look, you guys on the left, you own the fact that you believe you're the forces of progress and the forces of change and the forces of reform and rewriting, the face of society. That's your bag, and that's fine. That's an ancient and honorable thing to believe, even if I have disagreements with it. But conservatism, at a metaphysical level, is supposed to be about preserving those things that need to be preserved, about loving this country as it is, not just for as it should be, for thinking that fidelity to the Constitution matters. And if all of a sudden the right joins this game in an even uglier, fascistic kind of way, and just simply says it's all will to power, it's all about winning, it's all about whether my guy can punish your guy, then that's really bad for America. It's fine when one party, it's not fine, but it's tolerable when one party is the gas pedal and the other party is the brake. When both parties are the gas pedal, the whole thing can just fly apart.
Yeah. Well, so one thing I think I hear you arguing for is that we maintain a sense of proportion, and in the spirit of doing that, I think we have to recognize that there are asymmetries on both sides of this continuum. So it's really like the game of both-sidism doesn't quite work. And there's one asymmetry, which accounts for why I've spent more time focused. I mean, as much as I bang on about Trump, I've actually spent more time focused on the problems of the left. And it's because the left has really captured culture and institutions in a way that the right hasn't. The morons who marched in Charlottesville don't have significant cultural power, but their equivalents on the left really do, in that their arguments and their moral intuitions have filtered into institutions that I actually care about. Right? So that the New York Times isn't being vitiated by Ku Klux Klan ideology, but it is being vitiated by a sense that racism is at the bottom of everything. And what's more, it's intellectually and ethically trivially easy, to the point of just absolutely stultifying boredom, to point out what's wrong with the far right. I mean, just, what's wrong with being a member of the KKK? Well, just do we really have to do a podcast on that? Whereas what's wrong with the far left is genuinely confusing to smart, well-educated, well-intentioned people. I mean, what's wrong with Black Lives Matter? And what could be wrong with that? How is the video of Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd not proof positive that we have an omnipresent problem with racist, sadistic cops killing young black men, right? I mean, that's just confusing to vast numbers of smart people, and so there's much more to pick apart there. But the other asymmetry that is truly enormous is in the political derangement of the Democratic and Republican parties at the moment, and the way in which the Republicans have been captured by a personality cult under Trump. And this is something that, again, people who descend from always get
For
wrong. I
another
mean, they'll
15
point out the
minutes.
kinds of things you've pointed out, sort of like ordinary opportunism and cynicism and hypocrisy that happens within the ordinary norms of norm violations politically. So, Obama said he wouldn't do this thing, and then 24 times, and then he did the very thing he said he wouldn't do. And so if you line those indiscretions up with the kinds of things Trump has done, well, then it seems like, okay, this is both sides' problem. Politicians always lie, right? That what's new about that? And many people saw in Biden's recent speech, he's doing the very thing we've accused Trump of. He struck a sort of very discordant, semi-fascistic note in condemning a large part of American society. But it's just the wrong scale of comparison. And so here's an analogy that comes to mind, which it's not perfect, but it gets at, it certainly doesn't capture the multiplicity of problems with Trump and Trumpism, but it captures the scale and maliciousness of the dishonesty that is really underwriting the whole enterprise. And so I would ask our listeners to imagine that, especially any listeners who are still with us who would defend Trump here, imagine that rather than having President Biden, we had a President Jussie Smollett. Right now, that may seem insane, but that's precisely how insane I think it is that we had a President Trump. I mean, just imagine, for those who don't recall, Jussie Smollett was this actor who faked an attempted lynching on himself. He claimed that two MAGA people attacked him and put a noose around his neck and poured some flammable liquid on him and tried to kill him because he's black and he's gay, and they said this is MAGA country.
I guess we just win now.
And inconveniently for his allegations, it happened to be 20 below zero that night in Chicago, and the idea that there were two guys running around in MAGA hats looking to lynch somebody seemed pretty far-fetched, and his story unraveled. But he got on national television and talked about how harrowing it was to have been almost lynched, and he told what really is at bottom a vicious and society-shattering lie at scale. Right? Now imagine if he had been politically rewarded for this. Imagine if he was holding rallies with tens of thousands of people and whipping them up into a frenzy over the lie that he was almost lynched. In my view, that's really the scale of derangement we see among Republicans at the moment. This lie that the election was stolen. The lie that, and the fact that we had a sitting president who wouldn't commit to a peaceful transfer of power. And the party has defended him on this.
I guess
that's what's just so far beyond the pale here, and it's quite divorceable from all of the policy concerns that are rational that would cause people to have defended Trump in the first place. I mean, it's totally rational and defensible, and it's not necessarily my position, but we can argue about whether we want to have less immigration or different immigration, whether we want more economic nationalism, whether we want fewer foreign entanglements. All of that is fine, but it seems to me what can't be argued for at this point is that it's acceptable to have had a president who is lying at this scale, this maliciously, and deranging our politics that fully on that basis.
Yeah, look, I agree with you entirely. I wasn't trying to do a...
Just to be clear, I wasn't alleging that. I was just trying to connect the dots the way Trump is.
Yeah, no, let me stipulate. I agree with you entirely in the sense that
KLTP.
my friend TJ at work probably understated it, but it gets directionally it's the right point. In 2016, he said, look, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, look, Hillary Clinton is unacceptable within normal parameters. Donald Trump is unacceptable outside of normal parameters. And I think that's right. Trump himself is sui generis in a lot of ways. Insofar as, he is, I've been issuing this challenge for 7 years now to have somebody give me a definition of good character that Trump can clear.
Yeah.
And no one has done it successfully. And many people have written thousands of words claiming that they've done it, and then you look for the actual sentence that says, here's why Jonah's wrong. And it's, like David Horowitz says, well, Trump, is incredibly loyal to his family. First of all, that is, even if that were true.
It's not even true.
It's not true, but even if it were true, really? Like, that is a threshold thing to say he has good character? I mean, like, we normally think that that's sort of, like, priced into, like, normal behavior. But it's not true. This is the guy who cheated on his third wife while she was nursing their newborn with a porn star. I mean, he's famously vicious to his kids, not his daughter, but his sons. There's one story that he, we don't have to do that. I can go on autopilot about this stuff. But he was once, when his first wife suggested that they name their firstborn Don Jr., he said, we can't do that. What if he turns out to be a loser? And there is literally, I mean this very sincerely, there is no definition of good character, no matter how far out you wanna take it, that Donald Trump can get a passing grade on. And I'm one of these, fuddy-duddy conservatives who used to think that, like, emphasizing good character was an important thing to do in politics. Maybe not to the point where it was the only issue, but to me it's important. Good character also should not have an ideological valence. And this is just a sordid, narcissistic guy who, I guess this is a good way to, I don't know if you've had my friend colleague Yuval with him, but
No, but
it's like he wrote a wonderful book on a fractured republic and the role of, I'm sorry, another book called Time to Build, on the role of institutions in America. And I think he has a fundamental insight that gets at the broader landscape of why we're in the mess that we're in and why institutions are so sick. Normally, institution is a lot of things. For economists, it's just a rule. But like when we talk colloquially about an institution, we think of an organization or some other form of association that molds character, right? I mean, the sort of cliched version of it would be, you get some irresolute slacker or hippie, you put them in the Marines, they turn them into a Marine. You have undisciplined little boys, you put them in the Boy Scouts, they end up helping little old ladies across the street. You go into the monastery, you come out a priest, right? There are things that institutions do to shape the individual for the greater good of the institution, and in the process, make the individual a better person along the way, or at least that's the hope. And the problem that we have today is that we no longer see, or too many people don't see institutions as mechanisms of character formation. Instead, they see them as platforms to perform upon, to extract essentially rents or status from the institution for their own self-aggrandizement, their own glorification. And you see this in journalism all over the place. These journalists who use their association with, the New York Times, the Washington Post, or wherever, and they, and then they go out and they tweet and they create their own cults of personality, their own brand. We can have a perfectly legitimate conversation about Colin Kaepernick, and you can certainly say that the cause he was associated with is a righteous cause. That's all fine. But there's no disputing that he used the NFL as a platform for his own issues. Elizabeth Holmes at Theranos. You can go through a long list. And Donald Trump is, the ne plus ultra of all of this. He used the presidency as a platform for his own personal cult of personality in ways that where he was commenting on things that the government was doing as if he was a pundit. He was using the mechanisms of power and of government to create an independent, informal base of power and adulation, when normally, what presidents do, whether it's Barack Obama or Ronald Reagan or whoever, they bend their needs to a large extent to the needs of the presidency itself. Mm-hmm. It's a job that requires remarkable amounts of self-sacrifice. And Donald Trump rejected that entirely to make it all about him and the glorification of him. And that is something, I don't know enough about Andrew Jackson to say that we've never had this before, but it's certainly, we've never had it before in the age of modern media or anything like it. And he's done lasting and permanent damage, not just to our institutions in the country, but also, my ballywick, which is conservatism, because conservatism is now being redefined into a kind of right-wing populism, which is antithetical to actually being a conservative.
Well, it's often said that Trump is a symptom, right? Really the problem isn't Trump, the problem precedes him. I think there's some truth to that, but he's also a cause of further symptoms, right? He's the product of hyper-partisanship on both the right and the left, but he's also made that partisanship much worse. And he's also a symptom of the loss of trust in institutions, but he's also made everything on that front worse too. So there's obviously a dialectical nature to all of this. So he's made the right worse, and he's also made the left worse.
That's right.
And then the left becoming worse has given much more energy and justification even for Trumpism, right? So it's like, almost everything that Trumpists decry on the left is something that is worth worrying about on the left, right? And as the left turns up the volume of their, moral panic over pronouns or whatever it is, it's understandable that it's causing the right to go berserk. But this mutual reinforcement is really unhealthy.
I agree entirely. So there's a quote from Orwell, which I use often to make this point. Orwell, I think it's in Politics in the English Language, where he says, a man may take the drink because he feels himself a failure, but then fail all the more completely because he drinks. Right. And I think that's sort of the dynamic. We had problems that led to Trump, but Trump made all of those problems worse. It's almost Tolkien-esque how this creature brings out and distorts the worst in his enemies too, and provides justification to hate the enemies even more. And it's very depressing if you get too caught up in it.
Mm. Well, what's been your experience? First, remind me, I called you a never Trumper. I imagine, in fact, that was the case. When did you get off the train? Was it before it even started leaving the station for Republican politics in 2015, I guess? And what was your experience having done that among your fellow conservatives?
This is a complicated story. Yeah, so I was never on the train. In fact, there's a reporter who told me I'm one of the reasons, very small one, but I'm one of the reasons why Trump ran, because I had written a column saying of the current Republican field, I could live with any of them except for Trump and George Pataki. And apparently Trump read that because it was in the New York Post, and apparently slumped in his chair and said, "Why don't they respect me?" And that was one of the data points in this longer thing about how he had to prove himself. Yes, I was integral to this famous or infamous, in my world, issue of National Review called the Against Trump issue, where Rich Lowry, who was the editor, invited a bunch of people from across the firmament of the right to make the argument for sort of a popular front for why we should reject Trump. And I encouraged him to do it. I was one of the big forces internally advocating for that. I'm still very proud of it. It is now called the Never Trump issue, even though that wasn't a word at the time. So I was never persuaded by Trump. And part of that, I think, has to do with the fact that I actually grew up in New York City in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And so I just always, Donald Trump was a fixture of tabloids my entire childhood. And I always considered him sort of a clown. And anyway, I can get into weeds on that. But in 2015, where I started to despair was that I started getting really sort of, mostly on social media, I'm not saying I had I had to call the police or anything like that, but the amount of just wild anti-Semitic stuff that was being thrown at me back then for not being pro-Trump was just off the charts. And I think the ADL did a study, and I came in sixth as the target, the sixth worst target of anti-Semitic hate in social media that period. And anyway, what bothered me about that was not that there were troll farms or that there were crazy alt-right guys coming up and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it bothered me, but I could process that. What bothered me, and what seemed to me to be a really bad and sinister omen, was the failure of so many other people on the right, people I considered friends, colleagues, peers, role models, who just stayed silent amidst all of that and sort of rolled their eyes at the idea that I might be troubled by that. And I remember I got into I'm glad I changed his mind, but I got into a big fight with the talk radio host Hugh Hewitt, where he was making the argument that the alt-right are just disaffected Tea Partiers and they need to be part of the larger coalition of the right, and we need a popular front. This was back at the time where Steve Bannon was talking about how he wanted Breitbart to become the platform for the alt-right. And the thing is like, because I've been at National Review for, since 1998, I've been dealing with the fever swamp racists on the right for a very, very long time. And if you actually know the sources that they're reading, that they're the intellectuals or pseudo-intellectuals that they're invoking, there's simply no way. The whole point of National Review, it came too late to this, but eventually its credit came to this, was to read these kinds of goons out of the respectable conservative movement. And now all of a sudden, because they were providing, esprit de corps and energy, and they were online and they were young, and you had Milo and all those guys boosting this stuff, and they were for Trump, and Trump would not denounce them. All of a sudden, this popular front argument just crushed all opposition and said, let these guys in. And just at a very fundamental level, the idea that I'm the stick in the mud and the weird one for responding to a bunch of people who literally say the world would be a better place if my entire family had been reduced to an ashtray of the Holocaust, that I'm the weird one for not wanting to hang out with them, for not wanting to find common cause with them. And again, I'm not saying that all these people condoned this stuff. They just didn't think it was something that was worth energy, and making a fuss out of it lent aid and comfort to the Republican, to the enemy. And it was this sort of mass sort of delusion and psychosis that kind of took over vast parts of the right. I wrote a piece, I think it was in March of 2016, that got a lot of, it's what Charlie Sykes credits for basically saying, all right, I'm done with conservatism as you know it is. I wrote this piece, I think it began, if this is what conservatism is going to be, this is where I get it. And I wrote about how I felt like I was living in a invasion of the body snatchers.
That's hilarious.
Because people who I knew better would one day be telling me how Trump was unfit for office and we got to do everything we have to do to stop him. And the next morning, it was like they slept next to a pod and woke up and said, now under Comrade Trump, we will have the greatest wheat harvests east of the Urals we've ever had. It became this just bizarre madness of crowds. I have lots of theories about why it happened and why it happened to certain individuals. But for me, and I gotta say, I did not leave National Review because it happened at National Review. It did not. But it felt like over time I was more and more of a problem for National Review for refusing to sort of say, you know, let's give the guy a chance, and you know, blah 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 blah, and he's better than Hillary, and all of these kinds of things. And even though, you know, I wrote some stuff, like I called myself a never Trumper during the primaries and the presidential campaign. Because for me, what never Trump meant was never going to endorse the guy, never going to vote for the guy. But then after he was elected, I wrote this piece called something like Never Trump, Never More, something like that, because he's president and you only have one president at a time. And I explained that
Nice, got his flash.
the term Never Trump doesn't really work anymore. But what I'm not going to do is lie. And I'm going to continue to point out that this guy is unfit. I'm going to continue to point out that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Oh god.
If he continues to prove that I'm right.
Nice, they got him at least, that's fine.
The astounding thing to me in that whole series,
Aatrox triple?
I thought had the same job description.
I'd be happy with that.
broadly understood.
He's gonna have Q again soon. Oh, he'll get him. Q? Oh, he missed his W.
General sort of
Okay, that works.
public opinion journalist, public intellectual, whatever label you want to put on it. I always thought that the
that was a Kindred triple.
fundamental, non-negotiable journalistic
That came
ethic
out way ahead there
was
anyway.
don't say or write things you do not believe to be true. And I was simply astounded by how many people didn't see their role the same way, because it turned out a lot of people saw themselves more as proxies for a party or a cause than they saw themselves as sort of people on the sidelines offering their honest opinions about what was going on. And I think that's part of the problem we have, is that
There's
too many
no way
people
that
on the left
Kindred's
and the
getting
right
the
have
enemy
internalized
chicken
party
thing.
functions without
God.
realizing that they're not supposed to.
So is that how you explain the capitulations of ordinary Republicans at this point? Like, that's when I ask the question, why there are so few Liz Cheneys, for instance. I mean, is it opportunism and cowardice and just a supplanting of every other
Get the
ethic
singed
by
prick.
party politics?
Go in, man.
When I'm thinking, like, I mean, an egregious example, I recall, the truth is I, until this moment, forgot he even existed. So fully has he disappeared from the public conversation. But at the time, I found his acquiescence to Trump and Trumpism just astounding and abject, and it's quite a sight to behold. And this is all coalescing in the figure of Paul Ryan. What happened to Paul Ryan? How is it that you have someone who's like, you know, I don't know him personally, I don't actually know all that much about him, but I believe I know that he's a rational, normal, reasonably well-informed politician who must have known exactly what he was dealing with in Trump, and yet, you know, there was just an absolute failure to acknowledge the obvious, and from the outside, the total abdication of civic responsibility.
His animation went for the flip, but it didn't flip me.
Useful at that point, or really ever since. I mean, I'm not aware that he's ever come
Just
out
going
and
bottom. They're
performed
gonna lose that
an
fight.
autopsy on his collaboration with Trump at the time. I mean, why aren't there
So
1,000 Liz Cheneys in the Republican Party?
So, I mean, this is a complicated subject, and it's made all the more complicated because I do know Paul Ryan fairly well. And this is like one of the problems I have as a journalist. I try really hard not to become friends with politicians, because in some ways, my dad always used to make this point that the most corrupting thing in life isn't money, it's friendship. And you will do things with friends that you would never. If I called you up and said, I got $10,000 for you to give this kid an internship, and you didn't know me from Adam, you'd say, screw you. But if we went to high school together and I said, hey, look, my kid's in trouble, can you help me out? You might still say no, but you'd just be much more likely to do it.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is treat politicians like lab animals.
Right
One thing you never do with lab animals is give them names, because you know it's much harder to
just
stick
farming
the needle
tower. I know
fluffy
everyone's camping,
than it
and
is to
that's
set up the
clearly just
14
farming
feet.
under towers.
So I'm just saying that so people can discount my conflict here. I talked to Paul Ryan a few times during that period, and part of his argument, you know, look, at the end of the day, Paul Ryan was a party guy. I think he was more courageous prior to the age of Trump than a lot of other party guys.
I think I can kill him
But
with my ult
that's
soon.
not the point.
Depends if Singe is
What
still
happened with
watching or
Paul,
not.
at least in one respect,
Does have
was
some shutdown money too.
going into the 2016 election, you got to remember, everybody
Yeah, I
thought
do want to give it a
Trump
shot.
was going to lose. And what Paul was legitimately and fairly worried
Wait for his tornado and then we'll
was
go in
that
after he uses
Trump
it.
lost by 10 points. Basically, every halfway decent Republican in a purplish district, you know, in a swing district, would get wiped out.
Graves is still
And
there
the
too.
only Republicans left would be the super Trumpians. And so he struggled
If I
with
kick
the
in, I
best
kill him,
way
but Graves is just getting
as a
right
party
away.
guy
It's not worth it with a
to
big
what was
wave.
best for his members. Do I agree with every one of his decisions? No. But I think that, you know, Paul Ryan is
Yeah,
a
so
good
you got
example
great
of what I call
stash.
a closet normal. There are a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill, I think the term in social science is lie a lot about what they think of Donald Trump. And the greatest delta is between what a Republican says about elected Republican says about Donald Trump when the cameras or the microphone are on and when they're off. And it's astounding to me and it's depressing to me. But I'd rather there be closet normals than the ranks of the open abnormals, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and those people grow. So it's part of this point you were pointing to earlier about the dialectic or catalytic nature of failure begetting more failure. I think that the more complicated, if you want to broaden it out a little bit to, I'll say
I can't believe they didn't see me.
part of the problem, and this gets to some structural problems. Part of the problem is that politicians still care about incumbency and re-election as much as ever. But structurally,
This singed is all over the map. Like, what the
to make
frick?
sure that you don't get primary, rather than
I guess we get
don't wanna
water
lose the
dragon.
general
I mean,
election.
it's just
Big
water
sort of
dragon.
polarization.
But like,
it used to be
why?
Democrats
Their
would
map-
tack to the left in
Their
the
macro
primaries
is
to
like
get the nomination,
just completely bonkers.
and then the powers of incumbency usually prevented
5
them
people
from ever
bottom at
having
10
a
minutes.
primary challenger.
Like what?
But then in the general election,
scan
they
this.
would
I don't think it
swing
can
back
stop them
towards
from
the
getting it.
center, knowing that they're going to get the Democrats needed X amount of independents or swing voters.
I mean, maybe it could kill the
Same
misfortune.
thing
then,
on the right.
Except there's a war
Swing
here,
to the
so
right
now
for
she
the
doesn't come
nomination,
in.
and then swing to the center for the general election. Now, because of everything with the big sort, gerrymandering, and all of those things, the pain point, the existential threat
Yeah, that's
point
worth it for the
to
shutdown.
staying
Should I go
in
kill
power
myself? I should probably
is
kill
the primary,
myself. Don't
not
give it
the
to
general
us.
election.
I'm fine with
And
support gets
so-
the kill. That's fine.
I mean, I can't tell you how many people just will say it openly that they are limited in what they can say and do because if they cross Trump, they get primaried, like Liz Cheney does, like a lot of these
Also has a
people.
shutdown.
It's not a profiling
Also
curve
has a small
by any stretch of
shutdown.
the imagination, but it is
The
one
Singe
of the
is so behind. He's like
structural
behind
problems that we
50%
have
in
in the
farm.
system is
And
that
down
the
3
people who take
plates.
the most
Like it makes no
extreme
sense for him to be
positions
roaming that
are
much.
actually
Usually when you play
taking the most
Singe,
conservative
you play
path
him
to
like
staying
Scion,
in
where you just
power.
feed a bunch, but
Because they're-
Singe should be
because of
back
the way
here,
the
proxying
systems
the
are
wave,
rigged. I personally
and
think
then just like
the
ruining
primary
everybody's
system is
macro.
a disaster for this
But for
country.
Singe to be roaming
And this is
like
one of,
bottom and
again,
stuff
one of the
makes no
structural
sense.
things
I don't know if he's just
somewhat
trolling
obsessed
or what.
about is that we are, in effect,
But
the
our
only
Aatrox is
advanced
huge now.
industrialized democracy in the world whose parties voluntarily gave up the ability to pick their own nominees. Instead, we've just basically outsourced it to voters, whereas in the
It
past,
also has
I'm not saying
no
the smoke-filled
shutdown money
rooms were
anymore.
great, but the smoke-filled rooms kept crazy people from the presidency. And now Donald Trump ran by going around the party establishment because the party establishment is so weak, not that it's so strong. Weak parties create strong partisanship in voting. And what happened was Donald Trump basically went over the heads of the party establishment and waved the bloody toga,
God.
and the crowd, caused
I can
all
help
of
him
these
too,
people to
but he's
fail.
gonna help me
Neither
first.
party were interested in the long-term health of its own reputation and brand. We would not have had many of the candidates we had the last couple of years. But the basically marketing firms
No energy.
that are just, my friend Ross Outfit likes to put it, they're like fully
Oh, that was
sitting on the
sick.
tarmac
I almost had him too.
behind us.
I'd queue up again, but I was going for the auto. Animation
Well,
well, screwed me.
Obviously, the return to smoke-filled
Good first
rooms is
tower
going
blow
to
top,
be going to trigger many of the concerns that gave us the populism on the right and the left that we're
Not
dealing
enough
with.
for Liz
We
Payne.
can talk about it, and I promise we wouldn't focus entirely on Trump. So I want to turn to some of that in a
Nice.
minute, but I guess just to close on the orange topic for a moment, what I think we're faced with is just a total failure of persuasion that at this point I have very little hope we can resolve.
I have bottom getting
whenever I
shit
talk
on now,
about
that sucks.
Trump,
There's
what
no
comes
late
back to
game to
me,
the
I mean,
bottom.
some of what comes back to me is rational, but very, very little of it. I mean, it's more and more has the character of having talked about L. Ron Hubbard to a Scientology conference. It's like, of course,
good
what I'm going to
analogy.
get back is just insane, right? I mean, it's like there's not.
I feel like also is
not
going to go
the
top.
slightest concession to
and help
any of my
Singed.
premises, however rational
Little shove and then go up.
well documented. So, I guess my question to you is there anything useful to say to Trump's defenders at this point?
Yeah, we can get a plating.
In
Or
terms
not,
of
he's going to
persuading them
show.
that they're wrong,
Yeah,
I
yeah. I mean, like how do we
will barrel.
if we get from whatever the path is to actually rehabilitating conservatism and the Republican Party and bringing it back within the bounds of normalcy, shaking off the
think we'll start
personality
the Herald,
cult and
actually.
the vapors of QAnon. Does that look like just people age out of it and it magically
Oh my
disappears?
God.
The spell
Graves is, like,
lifts and no
literally
one
everywhere.
really had any debate that accomplished it, or is there actually something to say by way of persuading a sufficient cohort of people that could make a difference?
Ah,
yeah, so
close.
the good news is is that the sufficient cohort of people
better
is actually quite small.
Oh shit, wow, he just
Quite
melted, okay.
powerful, insofar as
That Graves is giving us all the run around.
Donald Trump didn't get a majority of the votes. We all know that. Donald Trump, except
least
for
they get
one
the
garbage
proxy
Rasmussen
experience.
poll, I don't think ever broke 50% his entire presidency. Which means at the margin, you know, those Trump-Obama voters, those swing voters, independents, whatever, they have an enormous amount of leverage to keep him from being president. And this is one
And
of
the
the
proxy
reasons
gold from
why I
Harold.
think Joe Biden is being smart but cynical in elevating Trump in advance of the midterms, because they know that
I think like our
that
Aatrox is huge enough
persuades
that
a
he
lot
can
of voters
carry.
who are
Jin
not
can
very
just sit
approving of
back
the
and
Biden
get some
presidency
shots off.
to swing to his side, because if it's a referendum
And
on
Janet
Biden,
can just use her shield on
the midterms will be
Aatrox
very
or
bad for
Kindred. We have two
Democrats.
ADs that can take advantage of Janet's
Persuade people,
shield.
at least psychologically, that
Janet
it's
gives like a
choice
shield to
between
someone
Trump
and
Trumpism
also buffs their AD like a
Biden.
ton, gives them like 70
They'll go to
attack
Biden, like
damage.
they did in 2020. And so the reason I bring that up is that
But that's really good
I
for
think
Kindred
there
and
are,
Aatrox.
even among people who would vote for Trump again if he were the
Like I
nominee,
feel like we have a
like
pretty
Mike
solid
Baffling,
lead this game
would
so
even
far.
vote for Trump again in the
We have
primary.
a dragon, but like it's just one
beyond
water dragon.
rational
I'm
terms.
coming.
There are people
I'm
who
coming.
want to see Republicans win, and you know, the biggest source of Trump's power from the beginning was how he channeled and
I even clicked my screen on the minimap
amplified
and it still killed me.
hatred
Just
of the
instance.
other side.
Wow,
And
that's an
that
ace.
hatred
Holy
of the
shit.
other
See, I told
side
you.
is still
Told you we
it's
easily got
irrational and all
control of
that,
this
but
game.
it's still
I don't know
very
how to
potent and
explain it,
important,
but
and you see Ron
just do.
DeSantis being quite skilled at exploiting it. And so I think if you can persuade a sufficient number of people that Trump loses, or that Trump was to blame for the Republicans doing very badly in the midterms, I think at the margins, as a political matter, you could see Trump not getting the nomination or not even seeking it, because the one thing Trump really could not tolerate is losing.
You also
again.
can dash to creeps. So
And if you can
can't really
convince
take it.
him that a bunch of Republicans are going to run for president no matter
Let's
what, and that he's
make
going to actually have to
sure-
fight for it, and that
think
might, because Trump is
Graves
ultimately
will
a
come
bully,
straight
and
down to
bullies
dragon.
only like fights they know they can win. He might just, he wants a coronation, right? So he could
Do
win
that,
it,
like,
but they
Graves
won't get
will
that. Maybe that would work.
Take
And
aggro
in
if he
terms of
comes
persuading
and
people
can't
who
break that pink ward.
drunk the Kool-Aid in effect, for those who aren't cynical,
The
who
fuck is
don't
this
already
thing
know it,
for?
and are just being performative, those who actually believe it in their heart, I don't think you persuade them
The
out of
Janus
their
shield.
beliefs. I think that the way out of this, I don't like it. I want the scene at
That was a
the
good
end
Janus shield,
of
though.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where Claude Rains admits he
Oh,
was
no.
the villain the entire time, Jim was wrong, and
Oh,
Mr.
nice
Smith was
slash.
right, and all that. I'm not going to get that, and I can live with
Good
it.
Herald mid while the
I'll be
fight's coming on
perfectly
bottom.
happy
I like
if
it.
Trump just doesn't want to and
The chin's
drink
there.
his drink.
Look at this chin's not bad.
Ronald Reagan didn't go around in the 1970s.
Obviously,
vilifying
Misfortune is just pretty strong right
He
now.
just talked about the future and kind of moved on. And
Is she in Eclipse too?
not
Is that what it is?
not really mad. But the way you, other than Trump passing from this mortal coil, the way you sort of get rid
Wow.
of him is
Kindred style.
having him not in public office anymore. And that means
Yeah,
the
we should
Republican
try to
Party
take
just needs
Dragon.
to move on from him. That's hard.
I gotta
It's gonna
catch
be
the wave
difficult.
mid, but
think
then I
it's
can go to dragon.
possible. I worry that a lot of the people who are thinking about running for president have very bad strategies about how they want to do that. But if you know, I mean, I'm open to suggestions. I just know nothing that can convince someone who is all
What
in
the frick,
on
again?
Donald Trump why they're wrong, because they just, any facts you point to, they'll say, oh, that's made up, that's fake news. And I've given up trying on that.
But then what about the lingering effect of Trumpism itself? So you have people like DeSantis, who I think, as you said, of who's obviously smart enough to
Maybe
know
also thinks we don't see
that
it.
he's practicing lies.
Oh,
The audience
kinda
is
wanted to go on
powerfully
that.
misinformed about
Like 5v2.
terrestrial reality, election lies and all
Thought
the
I
rest.
could just walk up
But
and
he's
use a
decided
bush because they don't know it's
for
ordered.
reasons of political pragmatics, if not actual conviction, to pander to the mob, right, and to trumpet the big lie, etc. Let's say Trump doesn't run, but we have Trumpists
Yeah, he's
running
sticking bottom.
for
Sucks for my team,
the
but we can
presidency in
take a
2024. I mean,
good tower.
and all of this is inconveniently mirrored on the other side by the Democratic Party that, to my eye, just has no plausible presidential candidate for 2024. I mean, Biden is obviously too old, although one fears it's not obvious to him or the people in charge in the Democratic Party. And I think Kamala Harris is
They've been
obviously
holding her own down there
unelectable.
too.
So I don't know who runs. So it really does seem like
Okay,
a
we can
situation where
kill him.
Trump could win. But if he doesn't run and it's DeSantis or somebody else, do you think that the pressure to be a populist demagogue, the inclination would be one. It kind of magically disappears in the once we close the chapter on Trump himself, or are you worried that the Republican Party is now
Okay, now it's like
a
5
very
top.
different political organism?
Just keep taking
I have answers
turns.
that are unsatisfying to a lot of people about this. I'm not a huge Ron DeSantis fan.
Does Kindred have ult? Not quite. Oh, dude, you don't have ult quite yet.
He's not my third I don't much care about the vote.
Ooh, okay, that was
I've
pretty
never
cool.
lived anywhere where my vote wasn't canceled out 7-1.
We take
But
mid inhibitor.
if you asked me, would you accept Ron DeSantis as the nominee or as president if it meant Trump not being? It's a no-brainer to me. And I think one of the things that Democrats and some of my more ardent never Trump friends on the right just they've kind of lost the theme here, or they lost lost the plot. If you're going to try and turn Ron DeSantis into Trump, then you're basically conceding that Donald Trump isn't all that abnormal.
If I had Hourglass, I could go in and blow up that Graves. But without Hourglass, it's just not worth it.
Given the current landscape.
Probably just go back. So if we die here, Baron's up, and that's not good.
Presidency to conservatism to the Republican Party, name the institution, and I think he's a threat to it. Ron DeSantis,
I can
think,
get my
is very
mythic.
much more like what DJ was talking about Hillary Clinton, from a liberal perspective. He's bad, but within normal. I do not think.
Oh, the exhaust.
That Ron
Otherwise, that was an
DeSantis
easy double.
is
The exhaust mirror 4 R2.
closet strong
40% damage reduction.
And I think that one of the reasons he's not one is, and this is something that's not kind of is he's not particularly charming. Right? I mean, I don't get Trump's charms at all, but people find him entertaining. People find him charming.
And now we've got no exhaust for
Talk to
trucks,
anybody
so you know.
who's Ron DeSantis is perfect. He's there. And he's got really poor interpersonal skills. But I suspect that
Oh no. Gee, you should say sure shot that.
the guy who
Jim, horrible reflexes.
hardball
Jeez.
politics. I don't like some of the things that he's done. I think people misunderstand some of the dynamics of Ron DeSantis.
It works,
I think
it
he is
works.
more often, in the egregious cases, he's a servant of the Twitter mob rather than an organizer of it. I don't think he wanted to do that crazy thing where he revoked that special status for Disney World. It's just that the very online crowd said, go further. He felt like he had to. And regardless, the point is that this is a guy who actually does his homework. He knows the policy issues. I'm not saying this to boost him as anything. I just think he's right now the most viable alternative to Trump. The problem with Trump is first of all, his character is just different. He's, like Ron DeSantis went through the military, went through Ivy League schools. He has the ability to delay gratification and put his nose to the grindstone. Trump can't do any of that stuff. And moreover, Trump, if you put him back in office, the consequences are just awful. He feels betrayed by the conservative justices he put on the Supreme Court. He would want pure sort of Banana Republic style, put Pam Bondi on there. Let's get Michael Flynn back in here. He would put in true cronies and lickspittles and dangerous Bannon.
Even though he's behind, Singe makes it really hard to
in
take
positions
Baron.
of power, and I don't think our system.
He's just so
Ron
disruptive.
DeSantis wouldn't do that. You would have a flocking back of sort of respectable institutionalist Republicans who would be perfectly happy to work for Ron DeSantis, who would not work.
I think we got a group round dragon.
In a Trump
40
administration.
seconds.
And I think that when you try to make it like
He's not
Biden
worth going
says
in to kill.
these MAGA, he had this tweet the other day that
He's the
MAGA
distraction.
Republicans think that billionaires built this country. And it was a talking point they used against Mitt Romney. I think that is so dangerous to basically try and say that really MAGA Republicans are no different than Romney's Republicans. And it's dangerous because it allows the MAGA
Pretty
Republicans
much just
completely right
misfortune
to
is
vote.
like
And it
number
allows
one
a lot of
priority.
non-MAGA Republicans to say, oh, so your complaints
So
really aren't about
she's rotating
democracy.
down to bottom.
This is
I
just
should
partisan
try to
food
cut her
fight.
off.
And that's a really dangerous place to go. That said, there are really bad people who have been welcomed into the
Oh,
Republican
good
Party
vision when it knocks
and
me up. That
sometimes into
sucks.
positions of power.
And she's got GA
are
too, so we can't even kill her.
And they are dangerous either because
If we don't
they
get this
are
fortune, it's not even worth fighting.
incompetent who
Yeah,
just simply
it's
believe
misfortune.
Trumpian propaganda, or because they are people who are truly hostile.
Nice, well, he got a GA
Our
at least.
institution. I mean,
Jin's wasting shots from the Singe,
I'm
just
not
like
a fan of Steve
distraction.
Bannon. I've known him a little bit for 15 years.
Jin shouldn't be auto-attacking anybody but misfortune.
But
I
he's
don't know,
honest
this man's
that
much
he's a
time
Leninist insofar as
Waste
he
of
really
time.
does believe in ripping down the official institutions of our country. And he supports the kind of people that are either useful idiots in that cause or believe it too. And that's dangerous. I think a better analogy to this might be some of the sort of hardcore new left types who worked their way into parts of the Democratic
Who's
Party,
even
sort
pushing
of the
top?
Weather Underground adjacent types
Graves?
of the
Must've been Graves up
1960s
top.
that took the Democratic Party a long time to sort of say to either they had to mature out or they had to sort of be self-disqualified. But whatever analogy you want, it doesn't change the fact that these are bad people. And the Republican Party is going to have a long, ugly
Oh, I want that
cleansing
misfortune if we can get her. But
Whether it's
she's got her
successful or
passive,
not
gives her
remains
like
to be seen.
really fast movement
Well,
speed.
one of the problems
So she's extremely
I
hard to
see
catch,
that,
and I just got seen by a ward. So
more and more a bug, although it is thought to be a feature if you're
I really want that misfortune because we already popped her GA.
Actually, the truth is there's many places in the center here. I mean, there's this rise of contrarianism, right? And it's been amplified by the fracturing of
you ran out.
media, social media.
I think it was still worth it though,
but also
because she's got
the very
big
business
shutdown
models
money.
you and I
She's big.
have adopted.
I wouldn't keep fighting that. I don't know what they're looking for now.
Pakistan, we are offering
Actually,
alternatives.
Kindred's fed. And with that misfortune, I'm pretty sure Kindred can kind of swing a dick around.
Of media or thought leadership or anything else, and there's a taste for the
I
non-standard
think the evac after
explanation
R2, you have to
of
R like
everything.
immediately
The
after you
extreme version
shuriken.
of this is conspiracy thinking,
Like,
but the mid
using both
version
fires is like 5 seconds.
This pervasive uncertainty
The
about
shuriken is like,
whether you can trust
I think it lasts like 5
anything
seconds.
is true, and you wind up with
think this is pretty good. I think we could take Baron with that.
epistemology where everyone finds
Misfortune's
their
up.
curators of fact and opinion that they like and
But I think
side
we'll
with
kill.
it. And it's just
I'm gonna get
it's,
this
it
for
really is a
misfortune.
mess, and it's a mess even in places where, although I suspect a lot of what is being thought is dead. I won't name names apart from the name of the problem here, but one of the strangest things to really in the aftermath of Trump.
Okay, Aatrox is gonna go cut
in
him
the
up. Misfortune.
apparent
Nice.
rehabilitation of Glenn Greenwald. And Glenn
This is
Greenwald
nice little
celebrated
fight. Your teammates
by
will at
many
least do
people
the smart
who
thing. Yeah, like,
otherwise
oh,
affect
cut off Misfortune so
as
she can't come all.
this great defender of free speech. And I mean, the irony is that there's no one who planted the seeds of cancel culture more avidly than he did. I mean, his reaction to the Charlie Hebdo atrocity was to attack the murdered cartoonists as bigots. Right? I mean, his core value isn't free expression; it's hatred of the West and of America in particular. But it's completely upside down. Among again many prominent podcasters and Substack writers, they think this guy is
What are we
just
doing? Baron's already gone.
the champion of free speech and free thought because
That's super bad.
all he does is
I don't
shit
really
on
want the
establishment.
Singe either. I want the Misfortune when she comes down.
That's the algorithm that everyone is running now. But it's the intent of the club. It's so perverse that there's nothing that the
There you go.
BBC or Pfizer or the New York Times or CNN can never touch them,
Oh,
ever.
that was a good dash.
And what's
Maybe just
real
like
is
you.
something. I mean, you do your own research. Right?
Ooh, the flash too.
You have to be an epidemiologist now. You have to be a long-form
He's dead.
journalist. You have to. Pretty soon you're going to be cutting your own hair and making your own shoes.
Okay, we can get mid
because you
inhibitor
can't
off then, I
trust
think.
anything
It's just the support.
in the establishment, and that is, that's not just a Trumpist problem. That's pretty much ubiquitous now. What do you? And I guess that is the sort of the lifeblood of populism too.
Yeah.
What do we do with
Breach
that?
is usually
I agree
good
with you entirely about this.
at killing creeps, but like he's still behind. Own 11. I don't think he can kill super creeps with his poison. He'll be annoying, yeah, but I think they can take a hit and get out.
Incarnation of nearest to hand, weapon nearest to hand argumentation, because he's now turned on the mainstream or left wing.
Oh shit, dude, just get the inhib done.
Tucker Carlson loves. But
I guess if he
when
lives, that's okay, but
turning
man.
on conservative or right wing
It's like 2
institutions,
hits.
the left loves it. And he's just basically when he's fighting on your side because he's effective and he's intimidating and all these kinds
Oh,
of
I
things.
missed his W.
Your side embraces him and just
Oh, and he
forgives
didn't
all
dash
past
over the wall.
indiscretions. And I think that sort of broadening out, I sort of hinted at this at the beginning. I
Jin could
firmly-
ult, but then
there is a
he'll just get
belief
wind walled.
that so many of the institutions that we have, I think as you put
I
it,
want that,
earned the distrust.
Yasuo, if we can get
And
him.
I think that the
Damn, they have
part of the reason for this is that no one will stay in their lanes. And, like I thought when a whole bunch of epidemiologists said all that stuff about no large mass gathering was going to be
Except for BLM.
except for BLM protests. The inability to
Oh, the
understand how
Jin
that
W
would be
almost got it too.
received by
we
people
get
who were
him?
told, wait, so
Or no?
my mom's
Keep just
funeral
going to front top.
is too dangerous, but BLM protests are okay. And then people
I
would say,
guess
I
splitting
remember
him is fine.
a couple of
I feel like mid and
epidemiologists
head is one hit.
said,
We could
look,
go there. It's 3
ending
and get it.
racism is more important than
And he's
fighting
gonna die
COVID.
for one tower instead.
I
With an
might
inhib.
be with you if you could persuade me that BLM protests.
Yeah, I don't think he can 1v4, dude.
They're not. And then if these epidemiologists
If Jin was paying attention, he came up for ult, then he could
have
get a bunch of kills
particularly
there.
informed opinion
He's even
about whether or
got it
not
up.
mass protests that lead to riots will end racism. So maybe you should just say this is what the science
Damn.
says and keep your mouth shut.
Jin's not paying attention.
Similarly, you find across academia, you know that stuff better than I do. People people feel like they have to talk about
Dude, it's
about
3v5. Get out.
varieties that have come on down is the thing that everything has to be
What are you
about.
doing?
Because
It's 3v5 and
racism
freaking
or
Baron's
whatever.
coming up.
It's like, no, can't they just teach math? Right? And the problem is people who aren't read in.
That's fire drag too. That sucks.
Say, well, wait a second. You're not staying in your lane. How can I trust you?
I got no
if
kindred
you're,
for
if,
it,
if,
so...
if you're so obviously caving in to politics. And I think this works for
Why are they so obsessed with
political
fighting the
parties,
Singe?
too,
What the
and
fuck?
politics in general. I would have a lot more benefit of the doubt to Democrats fundamentally transform
Why is he up here fighting the
America.
Singe? Dude,
First,
he's ulting the
they did
Singe.
things like
Holy
make
shit,
sure
man.
schools
Dude,
work,
Singe is
where the
0-12.
garbage was collected, right? Do
Dude's
the
with
job
nothing.
that
He gave
is
a fire
actually doing
drag
your
to
job
ult the
description
Singed.
first,
What the fuck?
successfully and well, before you talk about wiping out institutional racism and all of these
And
other
that was
things.
that bounty
Because,
dragon too. They got an extra
why
like
I should believe
whatever
you
500
have
gold for the team
expertise
for killing
in
that
these very
dragon.
complicated things you have a
Because
hard
Jin
time
wanted to
even
run up
explaining
and kill the
when you
0-12
can't
Singed.
do the very basic things that we expect from government. And the way this is infecting journalism, everything
I'm gonna
has
follow
to be about
Aatrox around
the
because he's the only
trendy,
one that like knows how to
woke,
play.
shibboleths rather than sort of bread and butter reporting of facts. It sows immense distrust.
That Kindred
makes
just
people
goes
think,
around trying to
I can't
1v5.
believe any of these experts because they want me to buy into it.
Jin just chases the Singed every fight, even though Singed has like shitloads of HP.
An environmental reporter who does like all sorts of conservation and land use things, who just doesn't write about climate change. This is not to say that climate change isn't important or real. I think both those things are true. But not every environmental issue is about climate change. And when you say every single issue, every single heat wave, every single this, every single that is actually about climate change, there are people who understandably interpret that as this is political propagandizing. I don't have to trust this. And they discount it. And I think that this is the problem across the landscape, and it's one of the things that led to Trump. The internet feeds into it. There's all this disintermediation and all that. But there's this fundamental belief that no institution is doing its job because it cares about these other things more. And people pick up on that either consciously or subconsciously.
Well, one job that may be impossible to do is moderating our tech platforms in a way that obviously improves human conversation and satisfies partisans who will see every misstep here and every inconsistency in the application of terms of service to be
It's not worth it for the
galling,
also, dude.
loss of sanity. Where do you come out on the steps and missteps of platforms like Twitter to police the speech, right? And so, actually, I guess the sharpest case is the deplatforming of Trump, the deplatforming of Alex Jones. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, I worry that this
Misfortunal. Watch out. That sucks.
What do you?
That's my
What are your thoughts?
misfortune too. Oh, I got her. Guardian Angel, but that's it. I don't know why these guys won't
That's just the sort
focus
of
on
legal
misfortune.
philosophical standard. There's a practical
Every
problem
fight.
about how you actually implement that without pissing off a lot of people, and that's perfectly
Singe doesn't even have he doesn't even have a taunt. They're like taunting themselves by choosing to fight.
Steve Jobs kept corn out of the Apple Store. I think a lot of parents are probably glad that he did that. I
It's
think
just
the
ADC
Trump
this
case
game.
is a little
22
more
kills
complicated.
misfortune. Holy shit.
I think you can make an
Singe is
argument
supposed to
that
go 112. Like that's his entire goal is to just be like Scion, just a feeding retard who just runs in and like
better for the country as a result.
kills shit when you're not looking. And it's generally useless. But he has like an AoE slow because he has
Part of my
just
problem,
effective.
I honestly don't get that worked up about a lot of this stuff because I think that part of and we monetize victim.
It's just a fucking retarded Jin. That's all that was that game.
And on a bipartisan basis, and a sort of codicil to the cult of victimhood in this country, which I think Donald Trump is a high priest of.
And we were
is this
behind
cult
for like most of that game. Anyway,
Censorship phobia.
it's nothing
sense
reportable.
that,
He's just stupid. That's all it is.
One of the
Can't
best
report
marketing
being
tools
bad.
ever in America was to be able to say your book was banned.
I never
in
saw
Boston.
one Jin ult. Like that time
And
when
it
Kindred
is
took top
amazing
tower
how
and they're
many
all like
outlets
1 HP. Jin could have got an
love
easy quadra kill with his ultimate, but like he just
boast
wasn't
about
looking. He was
how
even
they
in
were
range
shadow banned
because
or
he was
they were
mid lane.
banned
He was
or
on
they
his
were
way up.
suspended,
He was
often
totally
for
in range to
legitimate
ult that. He
reasons,
just
sometimes
didn't
not for
because he's
legitimate
not
reasons
looking.
or defensible
He's
reasons.
freaking bad.
That's fine, but
Whereas
like,
that misfortune was always looking
there's
for good
power
ults.
in that, and I don't trust. I mean, this is one of these places where I'm sort of part of the problem. I do not trust a lot of places and people who say that they've been, censored or banned until I can actually do my own research and find out if it's true, because there's such a premium on claiming that you were.
Holy shit, this guy's
particularly on the
2-7
right.
with Jin.
All that said,
Dude,
look,
Jin's super
Alex
strong.
Jones, I
How do you
think,
go 2-7
is
with him?
short of
Just
someone
like
who
no
actually
mechanics or
commits
something. I don't
murder
know.
or rape themselves.
This guy only plays
is
ADC
one
too.
of
It's
the
such
most
bad
evil
like
figures
map presence for
solely
being an
through the
ADC
power of
main.
speech
Like what?
in my lifetime. And I'm
Oh
I'm
god, he's
conservative.
duo
I'm
with
one of
the
these people who
Janet
kind
too.
of thinks that if you spend your life
So
as
bad.
a jackass of enormous proportions,
Like
that
Kindred
you
was really
take
good, but he just kept
pride
trying to
in being
1v5, and it's like, dude,
jerk
even if you're bad,
and a
you're not gonna be
liar
able to
and
1v5. Like, just
I
don't.
cannot get
That's like
worked
classic
up
plat. Oh, he's
about
even just gold.
some of the consequences that you have to face for that. And I don't think we
Holy
have to
shit,
go
he's
full,
gold too, and he has
Nemo
over
alert on
1,000
this.
games
I just don't
this
think it's true.
season.
First they came for Alex Jones.
Holy shit, man.
I don't think the slippery slope works that way. And so I think the tech platforms are often their own worst enemies in how they talk about this stuff. They often believe their own bullshit
Aatrox is
about
super
how they're going
good.
to transform America and they're going to be these
I don't
sources
know what
of
happened there.
community and all that
Aatrox
kind
is
of stuff, and I
actually
think they're
focusing that enough
lying.
with me, though.
I think Twitter does a lot to make this country worse by shoving stuff in people's faces that they know will make them mad. I think Facebook did that too. I think it's shameful. I personally think that the easiest First Amendment compliant solution to a lot of the problems with social media is just simply have, an age requirement for having a social media account. And there's nothing that violates the First Amendment in that. Getting 13-year-old girls off of TikTok, I think, would be a net good. I don't think sense of our democracy would suffer in any way for it. And no, it would not be perfect. Just in the same way that, laws against buying
Oh, the LP gains and losses are just random.
but they would empower parents. They would make it easier to keep kids off.
There's nothing about your personal performance that factors into it. But it's
I'm basically in favor of anything that is compliant with First Amendment.
It's the MMR of your team versus the MMR of their team,
allow for
and
a lot
then
more
based on your hidden
than
MMR.
people realize.
So your MMR is like ELO, is like chess, it's just wins loss, and then each team has a team ELO that's computed from the members of that team.
And they think that, in some sense that getting kicked off Twitter is a violation of your First Amendment rights, which is actually backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, so I think I agree with everything you said, and I guess the only thing I would add, which I suspect you would agree with, is that by default I take a quasi-libertarian company's eye view of the problem. So I just imagine being someone who started a company like Twitter, or is on the board of it, or is running it, or is staffing it, and who doesn't want certain types of content on the platform, wants to have a platform, in the end, these people should be free to create as biased a platform as they want, right? I mean, it's
exactly.
The summary I would use here is that Twitter should be free to destroy itself. It should be free to become a platform purely for trans activists, and everyone else gets kicked off, and therefore the market will birth another platform that we'll all be on, all of a sudden. And that I think is the market working. But the counter argument here is that the only free speech that matters now is digital free speech. There is no public square apart from Twitter and Facebook and a few other platforms. And when you have someone, obviously I think kicking Alex Jones and even Trump off Twitter is very easy to defend, given what they were doing to identifiable private citizens and leveraging their mobs to dox them and harass them and all the rest. So it's not just that I don't like these guys. I saw them ruining the lives of identifiable people at scale on those platforms, and that seems like a great reason to be kicked off. But the concern is that for the normal person who's getting kicked off Twitter, I mean, there are people getting kicked off Twitter for saying things as anodyne as men are not women, right? I mean, literally, someone got kicked off for life for typing that sentence, apparently. And the concern is that if you're a private citizen, or if someone who's trying to build a business or build a platform, and the only place to do it is online, and there's no public version of the public square anymore in which to do that, and then you have cases which, the coordination of which really does get your attention when you like with what happened to Parler, where Parler is its own platform that has its own ideology that wants to be a bastion of jerkishness to some degree, but what you had there were the actual payment gateways and the hosting services. I mean, so platforms like AWS basically banning them. And in that case, then the burden is really, okay, now you have to not only create your own competitor to Twitter, you have to create your own competitor to all of the pipes and rails of our digital infrastructure in order to exist. And that just seems impossible. So what do you do with the claim that the analogy to ordinary publishing and ordinary gatekeeping and ordinary, editorial judgment just breaks down? I mean, we're living in a different world now, and the only way to be a person, in some sense, fully, is to be able to be online without threat of cancellation.
Yeah, look, I am very sympathetic to some of that, for sure. And my sympathy stems in part from the fact that I think it's a real problem, but I'm not sure I know what the remedy is. There was this, weird moment for about 18 months where all these people in the sort of newish right were saying how the only way to fix Twitter is to basically, or social media, is to nationalize these things and have basically the government get involved in it. And like the idea that somehow the government having a department of responsible social media posting seems fraught to me.
Yeah.
And I do think like the someone getting banned for saying there's a difference between men and women, or that men.
No,
can't
so I
have babies
banned
or any of those
fiddlesticks.
kinds
I
of
banned
things.
misfortune.
I think the decision to ban people for that is
Fiddlesticks
indefensible.
is really strong right
because
now,
I
though.
think in part because truth telling is always its own defense. You don't need further arguments, further justifications to defend truth. Telling the truth sometimes can be rude or impolitic or ill-advised. You don't have to say to your wife that dress does in fact make her look heavy. But
Although read my book Lion on that point.
I will. Okay, fair enough. But my point is just sort of like as a matter of policy, editorial policy, and everything else. Telling the truth may not be a sufficient defense, but it always is a defense. But I think that the answer to that is less about arguing about how to force Twitter to have better policies, and really about sort of winning some of those arguments in the larger public space. And the other point I would simply make is I'm very much a Schumpeterian when it comes to things like monopolies. And I do not think that Twitter is a monopoly. This is one of these points that I think gets lost on a lot of people, because Twitter so dominates the social media space for journalists and public intellectuals and politicians that we seem to think that that's where all the social media is. But there are a bunch of social media apps that are much bigger than Twitter, and a bunch of platforms that are much bigger than Twitter. And if you look at things like Facebook, which is, in terms of capitalization, vastly bigger than Twitter, and of users, young people are basically just not using Facebook as much anymore, at least in the United States and the West. And, one of the points that Schumpeter, makes is that monopolies cannot last under their own weight for very long. Very long is very much in the eye of the beholder. But this is the point that Adam Smith makes in Wealth of Nations, where he says, seldom will two people of the same trade sit in a pub or a public meeting place and have not the conversation turn to a conspiracy against the public good. And his point about that is that it's in the natural interest of incumbent businesses and powerhouses to rig the system for their own benefit. Schumpeter and Smith's response to that is that only works if the state steps in. And if the state grants the power of monopoly through the force of law, monopolies can last for a very long time. If not, then innovations come along and eat away at monopolies. And you can go back and you can look at all the supposed permanent monopolies that are in in Blade Runner when they're looking at the future. And almost all of them are gone, or they've merged or been bought out or just gone. And so I think that some of these problems get fixed over time. And one of the things that sort of like the people, marketing off of being censored, one of the things that raises red flags for me in my classical liberal conservative hat is when major players, major businesses beg the government for regulations, something is going on. And, Zuckerberg, they run ads. Facebook ran ads the last 2 years begging the federal government to regulate social media. And if you read the Marxist historian Gabriel Kolko, this happened a lot in the progressive era, because what happens is the state comes in, it creates these barriers to entry, and basically establishes these corporate or corporatist entities as too big to fail and too big to have competition. And when Zuckerberg testifies before Congress, he's constantly saying, give us regulation, because Facebook can't afford to comply with whatever regulation Congress comes up with. The smaller players can't. And that makes me nervous, because basically that's corporatism, and that instantiates as a permanent advantage for one player above others, and protects incumbents from the sort of the correctives of the market.
Right. Otherwise known as regulatory capture.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jonah, this has been fantastic. I guess I just have one final question for you. I know you think about the power of stories and the significance of the stories we tell ourselves, both about ourselves and about one another, about who we are, about what we're doing and why, about what's possible for us individually and collectively. What story or stories do you think we should be trying to tell at this point?
I'm going to change it just ever so slightly.
Sure.
I wrote this very dour sounding book called Suicide of the West, which basically sounds like I'm telling people to take a bath with a toaster. But it actually ends, spoiler alert, with what I think is a crucially important piece of advice, which is gratitude. We live in a society, my friend Evelynn, likes to argue, and I agree with him, that conservatism, rightly understood, starts from a place of gratitude. It says, you look around the world, and you look around your community, you look around your country and say, and you find things that are lovely and lovable. And you say, I want to pass these along to my children and my grandchildren or to posterity. And you want to conserve them. And this is a very non-ideological right-left kind of point. I recently spoke at Chautauqua the week after Salman Rushdie. I actually stayed in the same room as Salman Rushdie. It was a very sobering thing. And that audience was a great audience, definitely on the liberal side, all in all, sometimes very much so. And they love that place. It's this place that has this spirit of open inquiry and camaraderie and community and engagement with ideas and music and art and all these kinds of things. And a lot of those people are probably, hardcore, Obama voters, Sam Harris devotees, committed progressives. But they're profoundly conservative about Chautauqua, about what makes it special. And yeah, they're in favor of getting, the place didn't have running water until, I don't know, like 50 years ago or something like that. I'm sure they had 1,001 debates about what things they have to do to modernize the place while not losing what is special about it. Because they're grateful. A lot of them grew up in it, or their grandparents grew up in it. And I think that's a way to think about America, is what are the things about America you're actually grateful for? And I think that one of the problems that we have is that we can't even conceive of gratitude. And I write books, Steven Pinker writes books, my friend Marion Tucci writes books about how good we have it. How Barack Obama was right about how basically if you had a choice, if you were behind some Rawlsian veil of ignorance and you pick any one time in all of human history to be born in any one place, a pretty smart decision would be the United States of America at the beginning of the 21st century. But we don't teach gratitude. We teach resentment and entitlement. We teach people to feel angry, to feel like they're owed something. And so the story I would basically tell is the story of how America has been truly improving and doing a better job of living up to its ideals than anybody prominent on the right or the left wants you to believe. There's another point that Barack Obama made that I think is absolutely right. The American founding was flawed. The Constitution was flawed. I think people don't really understand the point about the 3/5 clause, but the fact that it was in there was a profound moral compromise that we should be ashamed of. The story we should be telling isn't how America is evil because we had slavery. We should be talking about how America is great because it ended slavery at great bloody expense. Slavery was an institution found all across the world for thousands of years. And this thing...
I take it over here in case he's in that bush. You can't see me taking it to know how weak it is and smite it from me.
Classical liberal philosophy.
Sure, you can kill me as I walk past here, but depends.
The individual is sovereign, that we are captains of ourselves, right now, that every human being has draws on Judeo-Christian values and all that. We have those arguments, it's fine. But it was this idea that people did not live up to very much at all until about 300 years ago. And then only in fits and starts. And the story of America... And the movie's really strong early game. All the bad stuff about America because the hypocrisy... And surprised he hasn't invaded, honest. Founded on this idea that all men are created equal, that had slaves and didn't give women the right to vote. Okay, so top priority. The great thing about that hypocrisy
is probably moving down here to contest the scuttle.
Of this country so much that we corrected that. That we fixed it, that we lived up to the best versions of ourselves. That's why I love Martin Luther King's, I Have a Dream speech. Because what he is doing is he is invoking the best version of America.
Any teammates want to come down and fight this.
7 years ago, whatever it was, when our forefathers founded this country,
guess not.
They offered us a promissory note that all men are created equal. And we're here to collect.
I don't think I can fight
and he
Mubu
played
on my own.
The best part of white America, I hate the term, but the best part of white America's conscience, and said, you guys are being hypocritical about the stuff that you claim to hold most dear, and you need to live up to your own ideals. And that's the story of America.
You're going to go try and kill it?
This country is so profoundly less racist than it was 50 years ago. There is not a social scientist worth his salt who would disagree with. The whole reason why we have this conversation about institutional racism is because lawyers interested in fighting racism ran out of cases of actual deliberate racism, so they had to have a sort of epiphenomenal argument about unintentional racism, and some of it is real. But this is a good and decent country.
He's going to ask his friends to come down and help.
But you should be grateful that you live in it for all sorts of material, philosophical, and moral reasons. And instead, you teach people as a matter of political discourse and educational pedagogy that this country is evil, that this country is wrong, that this country is hypocritical.
Wait for my passive.
And it's no wonder that you get a politics that is based upon those kinds of assumptions. And that's what Donald Trump played on, is that he played on the white resentment of a lot of white people being told they're racists because they vote Republican. And I think there's a psychic break that came. But there is now this sort of twisted thing that the idea of actually defending this country as it is something worth preserving, is considered to be a weird, kooky kind of thing on vast swaths of the left and the right. And that is a suicidal choice for a country, particularly one as decent and good as this one is.
Well, that was wonderful. Jonah, so great to speak with you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh wow, he hasn't broken my pink ward up here yet. I think he probably went home to shop again. Not. We could try it. I mean, I'm not 6 and he is, so that's kind of shitty. I don't know if I want to try to fight at level 6 Aatrox today. Q. Aw, he didn't Q. Oh, and Mumu hit 6 just in time. Yeah, Malphite's kind of like shit for ganking. He has just his rock for CC. Neither of us were 6 and both of them were 6. Somehow, I don't know how Mumu hit 6 first. Guess he just farms faster. Evelynn is one of the slowest junglers in the game. Oh, Malphite's already died at once, that's why he wasn't 6. Oh, and Mumu's already ganked somebody successfully once, that's why he was 6. It's not about farming, it's about he got a good gank. Also, what is the Cyan mid? What the fuck? Cyan mid is so bad, let alone against Victor, because Cyan's melee, he's not gonna get any CS mid there. But somehow he's up CS. No idea. Victor must have roamed. He's dead, there's no help in that. Wait for passive. Okay. There's a pink here. Unfortunately, he's not worth any shutdown money. Yeah, Scuttle is taken by Mumu for sure, yep. But A, it's gonna run out soon, and B, I can just walk past it. He might suspect I'm here, because he just saw me gank top. He's ganking mid right now. I'll see if he walks up from the gank, or down to dragon. He might want dragon. Plus I think he's just farmed his top jungle since he did take the scuttle recently. And had ganked top before that. So I think he's due to farm his bottom jungle. We'll see which way his head moves from move. Oh, they farmed the wave so I can see which way it moved, but I'm pretty sure he's going down. I'm not even going to check his jungle because I think it's probably gone. Victor probably recalled. He might ambush me here because like I haven't seen him. I guess he just went home? Like he could easily have taken this. I probably should have ganked bottom before taking this, honestly. I don't know if I can stealth quick enough to get bottom now. I don't know. We could. Oh, Sivers out of mana. I could kill Victor, I guess. Missed his W, otherwise, yeah. Well, I'm happy with that. Flashing and stopwatch. Even if I ulted him after stopwatch, it wouldn't have killed him. Oh shit. Oh, we got Kai'Sa's ultimate and Lumu's ultimate. That's not bad. Bottom has some freedom to shove the tower, which is nice. For my passive. Alright. Bro! Get out of here, bro! What even gives him the authority to do that? I can give Soraka some move speed, I think. Oh, I'm not weak enough. Otherwise I could. She's got no ult, so I think we can kill her. Mumu definitely took my blue buff, so I'm probably not going to check. Guess we could pressure dragon. Is it worth killing Aatrox again? Probably not. If I show top, they'll take dragon too. Just no good. Oh yeah. Probably can't stop them. Wow, Herald's running out already? I guess I gotta go use it. Sorry, dude. Let me use the Herald. Oh my god, it just ran out. You can't use it 2 seconds after fighting somebody. And in those 2 seconds, they ran out. Sucks. There's no plating anyway, so it's not like we missed that much. We could get her. We could get her, we could get her, we could get her. Bottom, come on! Maybe I could have soloed her with my ultimate. She is 0-2, I probably could have soloed her. But I was hoping bottom would rotate. I'll take that. Lumu's got shutdown money. We can get him. Yeah, Soraka healing! Boom! And we got the shutdown on Mumu. I knew Soraka had fuel in the tank for that. She's still like full health, what the heck? I think Soraka uses her health to heal her allies, and then she regenerates health by putting the circle on the ground, like her circle spell. That one gives her health, and she can use her health to heal allies for more. Oh god. These two are fucked. And is ulting down. Oh, he crashed into the wall. Unfortunate. Oh, Kaisa's gonna ult him. I am here. Woo! I don't think we're gonna catch the last little piggy though. Ooh, maybe. I could have keyed the correct direction. Still would have died. Ulted 2. Maybe we could have waited and ulted her. Oh well. If E had killed her, I could have just run out, I think, with the movement speed from killing. Mid tower, boom. He's Scion, he can die for mid tower, right? So in 3, have shut down money. Bro. My gold. Oh well, I guess we don't get a book off that.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Mid and top both decided to play like the worst characters in the game, and they're both feeding, so. But bottom played the best ADC in the game, so. Mumu's taking my red, except it's gone. Nothing to take. I don't know if I can get up there fast enough to help him. His Mumu sells ultimate after that, right? And Aatrox is following up? Maybe Aatrox isn't following up. Ooh, this Roka ult. Not enough. Aatrox is just too strong. This guy picked fucking Malphite, like the worst character in the game, let alone against Aatrox. Oh lord. This guy's dead. Kaisa has percent max health damage, which is just melting. Yup. And both our bot went top, so we can't contest the drag. Mumu's already on it. Because he can swoop over the back and get on it. Or not, maybe it's the chicken. Yeah, we can't take it without killing some of them first, though. We gotta kite it if we're going to, because Mumu's gonna jump over the wall. We gotta kite it if we're going to. Mumu's gonna kill us all. There's the Mumu ult right there. Ah, his ghost. At least Scion got the drag. I'm more of like kill the enemies first kind of person, because like the kills are usually worth more than the drag anyway. Just use the charm to keep her afraid so we can take tower. I think we can take this, right? Come on. Take it with me. Your Scion. Bro, what the fuck, your Scion? Use your passive. Holy shit, dude. He dies over there. Like, you're never supposed to run before you die as Scion. Scion's supposed to die right up next to the enemy so you can use his passive and kill him, or kill tower with it. If you die over here in no man's land as Scion, you can't do anything with your passive, right? You could have easily taken tower with it if you just stayed on it. Or if you tanked it, I could have kept fighting the tower and then we could have taken it too. Super bad. Oh, someone's got to go top to catch that. I guess I'll go. Diane went bottom for some reason. Oh god, it's two of them. Oh no, I don't really want that, dude. I'm just fucking with them. We got queues for days. That was a good Soraka heal. Can he get out though? I don't think he gets out. He got out! Wow, Soraka ult was clutch. But we're losing everything else across the map because Scien's bottom at tier 2 instead of defending at tier 1. Why? Not even gonna get anything down there, he's gonna die. Kai'Sa is coming down to ult him. She'll just ult him one time and die instantly, watch. Here comes the Kai'Sa W. And the ult. There it is. And she doesn't need the ult actually, it's good that she saved it. Doesn't even need it to kill him. He's a fucking joke. Oh, I got her to heal and flash, I'll take that. Pretty good, pretty good. Maybe we can clean up. Give her ult. Give her, you better ult. Give her, you better give us that move speed ultimate. Where is it? She doesn't have it up. Alright, I'm sick. Dang, that's 5 bottom. Okay, I'll just farm my jungle. What is he ulting for down there? Excuse me? The Victor? The 1 in 3 Victor? Oh my god. Dude, he didn't even get him. Like, you're supposed to int as Scion, that's the point. But you're supposed to do it to get towers and stuff, right? And like, fuck him up at Dragon and Baron. This dude's just inting for nothing. Like, for a lone Scion, or lone Victor, that he doesn't even finish. I don't think you can fight Aatrox alone. Top laners are generally like the highest level in the game because you get to solo lane. Split farm a ton. He's a level up and a ton of gold up. He's got 180 CS. Do we even want this? I'm gonna try not to ult because I want to save it for next fight. Nice. It's a little close. One good thing about Scion just constantly feeding is now this guy's worth more money when I kill him. The water drag? I'm sorry, bro. You want to get the second dragon? That's the fucking water drag? Mumu can probably solo me, to be honest. I don't know where the Scion's going. This is like 5-on-2. And they're like tanks with no DPS behind them. Oh, so bad. Dude. I can't even pick anyone else. Oh my god, she's got so many shields. No idea what's going on there. Oh, the Mumu, he's weak. He's gonna scan and probably find me. Scanner, where? There's a scanner. Oh, that was a good flash. Go away. And we get the free dragon off that. Kaisa, one Mumu Q and I'm dead because of Kaisa. Maybe we can sneak into his jungle and kill him because he's gonna go try for his blue. Depends if Kaisa comes around to help him or not. I think we can kill him. I think we can. I think we can. And just scared him away, bro. Scared him away. I was setting up so nice to kill him at like his herald. That's worth it. I mean, it's a good shutdown. Oh, I can ult in 1 second to get out of that. It could have been easier if Scion wasn't there at all to scare him, because he would have just gone to his Gromp. Gromp heals you when you kill it, so it's really tempting for low health junglers to go for Gromp. I think it heals you for a percent of your missing HP too, so I know Moon was going to go for that, and I could have just killed him at it. But then this guy, totally useless dude's just lumbering around, not knowing where he's being, and scares him. Ruins my gank! Even build. They're not tanky. I guess we just go for like Death Cap. Or Spell Shield? Spell Shield could be nice. Or Kaisa W. I don't know. Probably just Death Cap. Death Cap and chill. I want to give this a Sivir. We set up for a gank. Oh, Victor's catching bottom. We can totally pressure this. We can pressure this. Easy peasy. Let's go. Mumu's gonna want to chill around that ward. They saw me place that, didn't they? Yeah. Is that a bait? Did he see me place the ward and now he's baiting? Guess it wasn't a bait, wow. I'll take that. Can't believe that wasn't a bait. Can't get close enough. Oh, the rock doesn't do enough damage. And Sion's not gonna in for it. Oh, Sion used ult already, so he can't even in for it. I guess we Baron. Kai's is pretty scary for Baron with her W and ult. And Lord knows we're way behind. Especially our Sion and shit. If Sion doesn't die over there to like keep him off of us, we're not gonna get this. I mean, they do have no smite, so they should know not to try, but they have such freaking fed guys. I don't want to step in Victor ult. No! Is Kaisa gonna try and nuke me? Oh man, I want these kills so bad. So bad. I have ult in 10 seconds. I don't know if they saw me on Red Sweeper or not. Apparently not. Ult in 3, 2, 1. Oh, I almost had her too. I wonder if she'd be recalling over here. Would she be so cheeky as to recall right where she was, thinking I left? Nah, she's gone. Mumu? Maybe? He's full health though. Really hard to kill. We do have 3. Oh, don't get in the ult range. Mumu ult is scary, especially under tower. We should probably try again. I can get Death Cap actually, it's super valuable for the next fight. First, I will... Oh shit, that's already taken. Oh good, Baron recall, I totally forgot. That makes it fine. I can be back in time. Death Cap is so amazing. 286 ability power. It's like 286 damage on every ability. It depends how they scale. Q scales very low because you proc it a bunch of times. I should have charmed the Kaisa, I'm sorry. Woohoo! I think we can just end up that. Oh yeah, we totally end up that. Somehow we won this before their Scion. I think it was all Sivir. Look, Sivir's 10, 1, and 11. This game is literally just me and Sivir carrying. And I would say it's because we have 2 tanks, but like I'm not convinced their tanks are actually doing that good of a job in the first place. I guess the Malphite ults are pretty huge for starting fights. But like, damn. Scion. Oh yeah, that guy was mentioning Rocket Belt, right? Rocket Belt is such garbage. Take full skulls, it's like taking both of his wives. Like taking his wife, his girlfriend, and his sister. Yeah, Herald is good for a distraction. Like while you're doing something else, you drop it mid. I should have dropped it sooner, but I just wanted to... It's always nice to get a kill first and then drop it, right? Because then you know you're getting some tower. Whereas if you drop it first, then they know you're there. Because it like pings globally, so you know exactly where the jungler is on the map. And then he'll back up and you can't gank him. And then he'll just kill the Herald, like shoot it when it's trying to break tower. Hate Rocket Belt. Just in general, I've tried it on so many people and it's like, it's fun and flashy, but like Night Harvester is just so much more damage and value. Night Harvester procs once per person. It's like amazing and you get move speed on each proc. Maybe Rocket Belt if it went over walls and you could use it to escape, but like it's kind of slow. It doesn't really help you escape much unless you're right on the edge of like getting hit by charm. Like say there's an RA charm coming at you, you can... I guess you could try sidestep it or something with Rocket Belt. I don't know. Gale Force feels a lot faster. I don't know if it's true or not. But like, I use Gale Force all the time on ADCs and I love it, but I don't like Rocket Belt. But for the pen, I don't know if the pen is that much anti-tank. I feel like flat magic pen, like here's the thing, flat magic pen is actually kind of useless against tanks because they'll have like 250 arm magic resist anyway. And if you look at the formula, bringing them from 250 to 200 is like nothing as far as like reducing their mitigation. But for squishies, they'll have like 30 or 40, and bringing them to 0 is huge. That'll like double your damage output. So flat is better for squishies, and percent is good for tanks because like if they have 240 and you get Void Staff brings them down to like half of that, which is like 100 and something. It's still probably like not that much more damage. You're probably putting out like 30% more damage because of Void Staff. The Void Staff is worth it for tanks. I don't know if the flat pen mythic is. But here's the thing, the flat applies after the percent. So getting them together, they like help each other. Void Staff will take off 40% and the flat reduces from there. So you can get people at 100 down to 0 if you have Void Staff and you have a bunch of flat pen. At 100, I guess people like Aurelia might have like 100, like those bruisers and like, you know, melees who are fighters. But if you want to go for like tank melting, I feel like Leandri's and what's that other one? Demonic Embrace. Those are going to be better, and Void Staff. But even then, I don't know. It's kind of better to let your ADC handle tanks because ADCs scale up hardest in the late game, and they build items that are like percent max HP, or they have it in their kit. Like Kai'Sa has percent max HP in her kit already, and so does Varus and a bunch of ADCs. So they're made to be tank melters in the first place. So if you can just guard them in the team fight, they can get the tanks dead eventually. And I think Evelynn and Akali are better just building burst and going for the squishies in the backline, maneuvering around. Oh yeah, that's true. Eve already has 45% reduction. Yeah, actually, wouldn't make much sense to get Void Staff on Eve, I feel like, then, because it'd be 45% and then 45% off that, right? The flat pen is probably better than percent on Evelynn. I don't know. I almost feel like just building more damage is fine. The game melt tank's pretty quick, just building more AP and not worrying about any penetration. It's a weird equilibrium where like 0 penetration can actually be okay if you just have tons of AP, because then it's like, okay, I think the limit on how much mitigation you can get is around 60 or 70%. But if you have a lot of AP, then it like doesn't matter, you kill them anyway. It's like a little bit of mitigation is extremely good against a little bit of penetration. Let's see. I can go Akali in this. Pushy. I feel like too, if you kill the squishies first, then like the tanks will just die anyway at the end of the fight. Like they'll just be sitting there trying to be useful. So the tanks will die no matter what if you kill the squishies first. Just have to get around them. Yeah, CDR is not a super useful stat, especially since they changed it to haste. I feel like haste is worse than CDR. Like you have to get so much of it just to get like a little bit of CDR. I'm gonna skip one Q because they saw they didn't want Akali. They'll probably ban Akali. I'm not a big fan of the haste, honestly. Although, I guess on Akali the haste is really nice. You get more ultimates. Evelynn too, though, because both of them have ultimates that help you escape. Oh yeah, see, if she had a flow sheet on the Evelynn damage, that'd be kind of cool. But they changed the game so much that those things get outdated. I didn't dodge, someone else dodged, but if you don't wait out a queue, you'll get with the same people, and they'll know you want Akali, and you know, sometimes you get put with the enemies from the last queue. Or like, the people who were on my team who saw I wanted Akali might be on the opposing team, because it'll switch them around like that occasionally. So... yeah, the AP really needs better answers for tanks. Like, and everyone's been complaining about this for like, since as long as I've played, like for 10 years, people have been saying there's not enough AP itemization, which is kind of true. The AP items, there's like pretty much just 1 or 2 ways to go. But AD, you can do anything like lethality, CDR, percent max HP, percent current HP, both. Like freaking stealth when you kill people, freaking refund 20% of your ultimate when you kill someone. And what does AP get? I don't know. I think the argument there though is that AP kits are more interesting already. So like, you know, AP kits tend to be more ability based and like mechanic based. AD champions are usually more about auto attacks. So they make the items more varied to make up for that fact. But that's kind of less true lately because you have like super cool AD or like AD characters like, you know, Zed and Yone and everybody. And they've got the best of both worlds. Except I guess they only go like one itemization route anyway, like lethality. So let's ban Misfortune. That was freaking bonkers. Every time I see Misfortune, she's just absurd. Misfortune and Amumu right now are both so broken. Good, they banned Amumu. That's awesome. Oh, that's the dumb thing though, is AD has like lethality as AD penetration basically, armor penetration. They call it lethality, but it scales better into late game. And their argument was, well, it does that because armor scales naturally into late game, so we need lethality to scale as well. But I feel like it's kind of not fair because, I don't know, Magic Pen doesn't scale in the late game. And it's pretty easy to build magic resist and make mages kind of irrelevant. Like mages like Zeroth and stuff feel so hit or miss because it's like if the enemy gets fed, you really can't do much damage. They'll just buy some magic resist for you. And then you're only useful for like CC. Yeah, Zed is super strong. Oh yeah, mixed damage is becoming a thing again too. I missed when Akali was mixed damage. That was kind of cool. When we build Gunblade every game and he was like half AP damage, half physical damage. Now I think all of Akali's damage is magic, even though it scales with AD. Whereas I think old Akali E used to be physical. I don't think she's mixed anymore. I think it's all magic damage. Like you can build her AD, but you're still doing magic damage. Whereas old Akali, her E was definitely physical. That might have been it though. I think I was actually the only one. The other team is pretty squishy. We're against probably Diana middle. I feel bad taking magic resist just for her. I guess we can take 1 point in it. The rest of their team is AD. I guess Kog'Maw ultimate is magic. And good Kog'Maws are so freaking annoying. They can just land the ultimate one after the other. Oh yeah, Sunfire with Demonic Embrace. There was like a bug with that too for a little bit where it was like super strong. And for some reason, both my and Nikki's windows have been messed up. Like I can't even load anything. Like web pages just won't load. But on Mac it's fine, Linux is fine, and both of our phones are fine. It's just Windows. Oh, and I even have Linux on the same desktop computer, and Linux works just fine. Both Chrome and Firefox. Zuko, what is it? What is it? Zuko, what'd you see? Dog's freaking out, but the window's closed, so I don't know what he's barking at. Seeing demons. Four matches is Diana. Doesn't matter because Diana's so strong. Oh, could be. Yeah. And that's why we started Dorn Shield, because we were freaking Q. Oh man, she hit 2 first. Super annoying. She can just whittle you down to nothing with just Qs, honestly. Haha, took a tower shot. I think the dodge kind of resets after 24 hours, but I don't know. Did they already take this? Oh, Velvet this top. So they're probably going to take this one. I could go and try to contest that. Fiddles, do you want to contest it? It's going to be 2-on-2 if Diana follows. Just leveled up, so I'm totally down. Oh no. Already gone. Whatever. Everybody flash. Like maybe this Diana's a Smurf account, but he's definitely not that comfortable on Diana because he's like not zoning me off creeps at all. And he's missing a bunch of Qs, but he is going down to zone this Fiddles. So I think he's like macro might be there, but he's definitely not playing the lane right with Diana. Oh, he's back. He's back. Even on farm, it's pretty okay. He should know I backed, right? He should be shoving it into my tower right now. He's freezing it for me. Yeah, that must be it. He's got no skin too, so it makes me think it is an ult account for sure. Probably just trying new champs on it. But his like macro is not great. Like he didn't shove when I recalled, now I have an item advantage and can get shoving in his tower and get a good back. He wants to use his ult. He hasn't backed yet, so he's got no items. Oh, doesn't need it. That ult is so good. We're just going in, getting shit done. Oh, we got dragon. That's fine. He's gonna flash ult. I don't think Belvex flashed though.
An enemy has been slain. Double kill. An ally has been
Nice. I think we get free win here just because we have fiddlesticks. Nothing to go bottom, they're already dead. Can't push tower because she'll just clear the wave. We can go ward this. Oh, Belveth already took the shmee bops. And she saw me warding the thing. That's fine now. Oh, Shaco's here. Man, Shaco's such a useless champion. Is he even that good with Jhin? Like, I feel like he's not that good with Jhin. He's short range, right? Kind of have to suicide and get up in there. I feel like Shaco's probably better with like Vayne or somebody, right? Like Disruptor, they're both close range. How does he not want to fight it? I would fight it. Alright. Gets free chickens. Oh, he's not even gonna stop my back. What? Craziness. He didn't stop my back and he didn't shove the wave in the tower while I was down again. Yeah, we can try kill him. I think he's probably got flash again by now. And that bush might be warded. Where did he go? Did he just go home? He must have gone home. There's nobody gank bottom lane. There's no dragon. If he went home, that's like super bad because now I get free Herald and I can roam top. I just saw Riven use ult, so she's kind of a free kill. I don't want to kill this in a way though. There's like proxy gold. But he's in. He's in. Woo! And we got Herald. He wants to use it right away? Yeah, I gotta go defend. But they can pop this if they want. Nice. I'm like tempted to get more magic resist. Because her Qs are so annoying in lane. But like she's the only AP, that doesn't make any sense. That was kind of a waste of a fiddle ult. If she saved it for when I got there, we could have killed her. Oh, that was in that bush. Careful, careful. Okay. How broken fiddles is, man. What the frick? Oh my god, look how broken Bel'Veth is though. We can get at least one plating just because we killed their jungler. There's no threat here unless top lane roams down. I think we're fine. And maybe one more because Diana's kind of slow. She did get boots and she dies if she gets a speed boost from dying. I think we got one more blade in here. Alright, do you go try kill Riven now? Their top lane's roaming down for dragon, so I'm obligated to hold his lane top. And we can get these in the way so we don't die immediately. Riven is scurry. Not even gonna try to ambush her because she's got full item already. There's no fighting this without at least just poking her a little first. Oh nice, she missed her stun. That's huge. Oh, I dodged her ult too. Oh. That's a pretty good fight from my part. Oh, Jesus. Okay, I'm just taking this. I'm gonna take this and die and be happy about it. I thought she was running bottom for dragon. I'm gonna like kill these two both pretty extended. Doesn't really make sense when you have two top when there's like no herald. Especially when like mid tower's losing plates to Renekton. I don't know. I guess it's just lane trading. She even died for it, what? This Diana's macro is so whack. Guess we go top again. Fiddle Slash. He didn't trust the R2. I didn't even have a mythic yet. She did. Wait, is this a mythic? It is. Okay, we've got nice. We have both drags. Drags now for 2 minutes. Herald's in 1:20. I guess we just stay topside. Maybe we look for a Belveth kill if she tries to take this. I'll try to get a deep ward in Belveth's jungle. Oh no, she's bottom. Okay. What is that fiddle's ult? What? Okay. I'm gonna lose top tower. Dawdling too much.
Shut down.
No dicky.
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed.
If we fight her, we have to dodge her stun. And I just wasted E, so kind of vulnerable. Oh, dodged it. Oh man, I love fighting people like this, honestly. So much fun. That was a really good dodge by her. I was wondering if it'd be up again. I forgot it's a super short cooldown. Like her kit is made to be just spammable. It's super cool. Like Yone kinda. Like those were fun fights, both of them. Oh, wait, he missed though. Wait, he missed his Q though, didn't he? I guess he can E once for free even if he misses Q. It's just that he gets to E again for free if he lands the Q. Oh, these two are dead because of fiddles. Coming up to ult. Oh, but they's got a ward. They got a ward. Nice. Okay, Rocket Belt is good on fiddles. I'll give you that. Rocket Belt is really good in fiddles.
An enemy has been slain.
Oh, come on. Don't get scared, dude. Don't be scared. Go in and get him. I don't mind losing a water drag for 3 kills. I'd way rather have 3 kills. Oof. Sucks, buddy. Man, it's gonna be fat. I don't think she has ult, which is why I'm kind of looking to fuck her up a little bit. Wish I had ignite though. She's looking for the chickens. I do have ult now. Oh, she's dead. Wait, was that an E or a Q? What did she hit me with? What was the killing blow? E. I think E was it. Unless she did an A move for an auto attack that quick. I scanned the bush, so I don't think she had vision to auto attack though. Maybe scripting or like a really fast Q. I mean, maybe it is scripting because he's like brand new account. It would explain why his lane mechanics and macro are so fucking bad too if he is scripting. That was just really fast. I definitely scanned this bush. And even if there's a green ward in it, the scanner gets rid of vision in that bush. So like he shouldn't have been able to have vision of me. They literally couldn't see me until after my R2 had gotten to this point. And maybe he just knew it was coming and he was just like spamming E or something. I don't know, that's whack reflexes. Like Rocket Bounce is good on Fiddlesticks. Can crush him with it. Oh, we can kill these guys easy. Oh, Dana! Don't let him ult! I'll stay here. Dana might try to kill us both. We'll see. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh dude, you're going to the fucking thing. Fear her, dude, fear her. Oh, I think we're gonna have that. But he's just waiting on cooldowns. Fuck. Really feel like we could have had that. If he was there to... I think his W must have been off cooldown now. Damn, Velvet's just melting towers up there. Their top is 0-6, can't do anything. Cog will stop the recalls, they can't recall like that. Cog ult him? Cog's just gonna let him recall, what? Okay. Oh yeah, the spam canceling gen autos is so funny, especially on the Wild West skin. It's like click, 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 click. These guys aren't even worth money. Somehow Riven's worth a little bit of money though. Are we gonna try this for the Velvet? Oh man, Velvet. Thing is, Lulu ult is freaking scary on Belveth. We need Jin ult or something up here. We need something. I feel like we're just missing like half the team. I guess there's Shape as support, and that's like missing a player. And our Fiddlesticks is farming his top jungle and Dragon's coming up.
Ally has been slain.
Riven's gonna come out and try to ult me. But we could take advantage of that. There's the Riven ult. Oh. Fiddles is gonna keep farming his jungle. I guess we just give him second water drag. That's fine, it's just water. Oh, we are down a top laner, I guess he's 0-7. And their support is like a super non-impactful character. Like at least Brand, even if Brand's support is behind, he can at least stun, and that ult is at least gonna melt half their team in a fight, even if he's 1-8. Like a Shaco? Shaco's kind of worthless even when he's fed, especially his support. He's 1-4. I don't know. I should let him have that, he's so behind. Are we fighting after drag? For nothing? Is that what we're doing, Shaco? Fighting for nothing over there? Nice. Fighting for nothing when he's 1-3. At least we got the only fire drag of the game. Pretty huge. If we get a good Fiddles ultimate and a good Jin follow-up ultimate, we can probably win a team fight. What's the next item? Oops, do not go in there. Wait, what? Now? 3v5? Even if he gets a good ult, is A, no objective, B, we lose Baron if it fails. Oh, maybe this? Need to kill... And I guess I could shut down money. Do you want the Diana over here? Oh, buddy. That's a weird ult. We can't need the Diana first. Yeah, even if I ult, I don't think I'm gonna get any kills in here. But we gotta try it though. Almost got 2. I gotta surrender anyway, so it's like, why not go in? I love Shaco, he's so impactful. It's freaking so good. Diana's out of mana. At least ended early. This team wouldn't surrender. And those are games where you're just going to lose. Like, there's nothing you can do when your top is like 0-10 and you have freaking Shaco support who's like acting like it's his first time Shaco. Like, look at Shaco's damage. 12k. Like, what? Dude. 12k. What are you doing? Like, just putting clones down as wards or what? Like, so bad. Our top lane has just never played Renekton before. Decided to play him for the first time. Our top lane is like an 80 carry main. Must have gotten auto-filled. He literally never plays top. Only 80 carry. And he's never played Renekton in his life. Like, why did he think that would go well? These are some fun Riven fights at least. Like, the only fun fights of the whole night so far. That guy even a Riven main? Gotta be. Nah, it just takes like 1,000 games to get through plat. Just gotta keep flipping the coins. The thing is, top might be like salvageable if he stops at like 0-2, 0-3, but like turning it into like 0-7 by the time he's leaving lane phase is like, dude, what are you gonna do after that? Like, you haven't farmed any creeps, he's still underleveled. Oh no, this Hecarim's our Jin from last game and he doesn't jungle. He's just been auto-filled. We'll dodge that. And I'll take the dog out and probably go to bed. See ya.